Give me 1 second. Let me start this intro. I think we're already live right now. But give me 2 seconds real quick. I'm going to start the official intro because everything is kind of messing up right now. All right, here we go. Welcome to another episode of Woke Autopsy. I'm glad you guys are rocking with me. I have two very prestigious gentlemen waiting backstage to get on board. Of course, I'm on an early BPT time right now, early Black folk time, and too early, in fact, that my co-host won't be showing up probably till like 40 minutes from now. Cool, Vic. I apologize. We started a little bit early, but you know what? These people were on time and super punctual, making me look even worse. Anyways, getting back to this, I'm going to introduce these two gentlemen. They are Orthodox Christians as well. Very prominent figures when it comes to the Orthodox community. And you gentlemen know them, you ladies as well too out there. Let's roll out their intro.
How much more than just lifting weights, taking drugs, and eating an enormous amount of food? You know, a lot of people come into bodybuilding and they go, they then really never make anything out of it but muscles. You know, I think it created your personality, created who you are.
We've all had hard times, but you can't stop. If you want something, you have to keep going. And you have to follow your heart, man, because if you don't, you're going to regret everything.
You have to follow your heart, man, because if you don't, you're going to regret everything.
So, what exactly is mewing? Mewing is a tongue posture technique where you position your tongue against the roof of your mouth to improve facial aesthetics and jawline development.
Today we're diving deep into Trenbolone, arguably the most powerful anabolic steroid ever created, and also arguably the most dangerous one you can put in your body.
The body, this kind of obsession of the body is backwards and completely upside down. You know, even the Greeks understood that the quandary of man, the true poison of man is that his body, which is designed to be the chariot, and his soul, the charioteer, guiding the body to good deeds, that relationship has been turned upside down, such that the soul is now snuffed out by the riding of the body upon it. Instead of inspiring the body to help accomplish good works, in fact, the body and its passions squelch the soul's ambitions often. Never pamper your body like this.
Okay, here we go. Anyways, let me go ahead and take this off. How are you guys doing? Welcome to the stage. Announce yourselves. right to left, left to right, doesn't matter. You're my special guest.
I think
I'll
he's
let,
above me. I can't tell. Where's he
I'll
at?
let Dr. Muller can go first.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Appreciate it, Seraphim. I love the intro, man. That was awesome. I don't know what you want to know. Michael Muller, naturopathic doctor, and I do my best to be an Orthodox Christian. So, and I'd say my forte is men's health, hormones, peptides, all that fun stuff. And yeah, glad to be here and chat about the good Lord and trying to find that narrow path with health and ultimately taking care of our body. So,
yeah, what a banger of an intro. This guy said a lot, actually. We're going to dive into that a little bit more about your rationale for being in this industry and also your outlook on modern society as well, too. Braden, why don't you introduce yourself and what your channel is and basically what you're about?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram as Braden Seraphim Wirch. My birth name is Braden. My baptismal name is Seraphim. I'm a retired IFBB pro bodybuilder, retired from pro bodybuilding about a little over 2 years ago now. Before that, I was an ultra runner, very, very obsessive with fitness, and it's been a big transformation to where, you know, my sole aim in life truly is seeking Christ, and that has caused a big transformation to where I'm at now.
That's awesome. Side note, I ran cross country in college as well. Well, that's what I did in college. And it's funny because after I did that, I then got into bodybuilding and turned pro in less than like 6 months. It's really fast. And I heard that your transition into the pro ranks was fast as well, too. Am I right or wrong about that?
Yeah, I finished my last ultra. It was a 50 miler, and that day I, always had kind of a love for bodybuilding since I was a kid. That day I made it the goal to become a pro, and I turned pro in men's physique in maybe a total of 14 months. It was 3 shows kind of back to back. Got the pro card at 180, 282 pounds, and then rose the ranks up, and then I retired as a 212 bodybuilder.
Okay, so you were also a 212 pro as well, too. If I'm correct, I think that a lot of this is tangential to what we're talking about here. The whole title, if you guys can see at home, is we're talking about the Western issue of VainGlory. Now, bodybuilding, as it were, is a field of practice that we do that's extremely external. When we're talking about external, there's also the internal, and we're talking about biological factors, chemical factors, and things like this, which brings me to Dr. Muller. Dr. Muller, what brought you into naturopathy, and where did your passion lie when it came to entering into this field of study?
Sure. Well, I didn't reveal this about myself, but I stepped on stage 3 times when I was an undergrad. That was like when they had just started physique. That was like the Steve Cook days. And I was at the Music City Muscle in like 2013, I think, in Nashville, Tennessee. So yeah, I mean, I grew up in the Midwest, played 4 sports, I lifted to be strong. And then when I got into undergrad, that's a whole conversation, which you and I should have at some point, right? I went into history, got kicked out of that just because of my opinions. I moved into health ed. Oh, wow. Food guide pyramid designed by Monsanto, which I grew up on, a farm using that stuff. And then I got sick in undergrad, but I was working at GNC. I had my NASM and basically looked into all the natural stuff. And I had what's called interstitial cystitis and got better by doing things that probably we know. Like, I was an undergrad, so I was boozing, lots of gluten, lots of dairy, not sleeping, cut all that stuff out, did a bunch of natural stuff. And I said, hey, and this is like, 2010, 12, where, naturopathic medicine was very voodoo-y then, right? That's not real medicine. You're not a real doctor, all that stuff. And, but yeah, it worked. And I loved working at GNC, right? You'd have guys come in, hey bro, what do I do to put on muscle? I was in the fitness club. And at the time I was vice president and my buddy was running the show at SIU Carbondale. And he's like, dude, you need to do this. I'm like, bro, I don't want to step on stage. I don't want to be in a thong or whatever. But, we kind of went back on the philosophy thing. And, I always play devil's advocate. There's definitely the vanity thing, which we'll get into. But I do like kind of like that quote, a lion is most handsome when it's looking for food. Like there is something in aesthetics that is beautiful, but the inversion becomes when it becomes the outcome, right? Like, it's great to be strong, to defend your family, to, be able to lift things, and just, your body's the temple for the Holy Spirit. But the issue, and I saw that, I was a couple shows in and I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't need to be up here in a thong to prove myself to anyone. It feels good. You get validation. Let me post my 6-pack on Facebook or whatnot. But ultimately too, I was like, I did a couple shows and I said, hey, I'm going to go focus on medicine. And luckily in my education, we get lots of in integrative medicine. It's way more about being a detective. So I just learned, you guys would love it. This was bodybuilding.com days. I just learned physiology and biochemistry. So it's not, oh, your blood pressure is high, your cholesterol is high, here's your stat, and here's whatever it is. Like, let me learn the mechanism of action and let me learn you. And then how do we move things around? I mean, this is what health coaches in bodybuilding, like, if you're a personal trainer, you get this, right? Oh, why are you have upper cross? Why are you imbalanced here? Like, okay, you're doing too much decline, not enough incline. You're not doing shoulders. So naturopathic medicine to me was the perfect place to put all these kind of detective skills together. And I was already very familiar. I was actually natural all the way up until I was 30. I'm on TRT now, which we can chat about. But I learned all that stuff. So I was in that. I learned cycles, trend, Anavar, Ox, clenbuterol, all that physiology was cool when I was in med school. I'm like, oh, that's why we do clenbuterol. It's a beta-2 agonist, So, I kind of had a lot of bodybuilders dream that I got to take what I learned and really flesh out the physiology with it. And that's what I mostly do now. And, it's really sad when we'll look at where the youth is and hormone levels. They're, all-time low. That's not only men and women. We have fertility problems. So I assume we'll get into that. But we're definitely at an interesting time that we have all these really cool tools that can be used properly, but they can obviously be severely abused, right? So trying to find that narrow path. And then, it's funny how many people I do have commented under my stuff, like, does your spiritual father know you're doing this? And I'm like, yeah, not only that, and I actually might be treating your spiritual father, so be careful,
right?
Because there are controversial stuff, and I'm not going around telling everyone to use tadalafil, get on TRT, There's a royal path, and same thing with fasting, same thing with all these things. I'm not your spiritual father. I am a doctor. I'm not your doctor unless you come and see me. But there is this balance, right? Of figuring out with Orthodox, how do we incorporate this? And that's even, being Orthodox at your job or just being in the world. You have to figure out how you can manage that in a way that's best for your salvation and other people. So
I got to say this. I got to talk about Michael, Dr. Moeller, like he's not here. Hey, Braden, let me pull you aside for a bit. I think somebody was a little bit more wise than us because they kind of ducked out of the industry and ducked out of all the pitfalls that we kind of fell into. I'm just telling you right now. Oh, hey, what's going on, Dr. Moeller?
Yeah.
This conversation is very interesting to me. And the reason why it's extremely interesting is because I think that young men look down the path that I went through. Matter of fact, Braden I'm like transfixed between Braden and Seraphim. I'm just going to call you
Seraphim. Seraphim, bro. Look at this guy. He's definitely Seraphim.
This is an Orthodox podcast. Go Seraphim.
Dude, he's got the. Is it Seraphim Rose or Seraphim Sarah? I mean, because the beard is almost looking rose.
Seraphim the Sarah.
Yeah, that's my church.
Sarah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So Seraphim, I think that we grew up in an era where when you open a magazine, I have like a shoebox full of like magazines I was in the closet right here. But you open it up and you didn't have Instagram to scroll through. You usually found out who won the Prague Pro or whatever by finding out the next month after the fact, of course. And you opened it up and you saw the placings and stuff like that. When I saw people like, I would say, Paul Dillette, Flex Willer, who I looked up to, Kevin Levrone, and I heard you say that when you saw Jake Cutler, that inspired you. But nowadays, because I'm going to go off script a little bit. There's sometimes during this podcast, I'm going to go on script with the questions we ask, and then I'm just going to kind of go directly with questions that I have pertaining to your content that I saw specifically, Seraphim. I saw you say that you saw Jay Cutler. Now, people are seeing the same thing, but what they're saying is they're seeing gear backed up with all this. You see two brothers called the Trend Twins. You see everybody else asking what stack they're on, this and that. And Dr. Moeller, correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to a drug that crosses the blood-brain barrier, Tren is really diabolical when it comes to things like forgetfulness, and you know what I'm talking about with Alzheimer's, things like this, leading down that path. I think it's one of the most dangerous drugs that we can ever use. And I know I'm addressing both of you right now. Any one of you are free to jump in. But the last point I'll make is that when we see this and we're drawn into the allure of six packs and people looking a certain way and looks maxing, we're in a different era where that's magnified 10x. It's not the simple magazine you open up, and people are trying to find a road to get there. What's problematic that you see about the whole social media and instant gratification with men's lives and wanting to develop themselves in this dating environment and wanting to get everything and develop themselves?
Yeah, please, Seraphim.
Yeah, this is something that I've, over the last 2 years specifically, done a lot of work, not only with myself, but helping a lot of people through this. I mean, everything right now comes back to pride. Now, I've talked about this, many times, that the tricky thing with pride is the deeper our pride is, the less we think there's actually a problem at all. And all of social media now feeds back into pride, or it can very, very easily feed back into pride. So this is something that I don't only see within drug culture. I don't only see this within bodybuilding. I believe that bodybuilding in looks maxing, which I'm sure we'll get into, is kind of the epitome of this far. But we can see this even within the people that do high rocks, or the runners on social media. It's all of this can come back to, is fitness being an idol. That's one thing I discovered within myself, is I thought it was very much just the pride of bodybuilding and showing off my physique. And when I stepped away from pro bodybuilding, still so just everything was about fitness, and then everything was also about showing the fitness off online. For me, it was very much the fitness itself was an idol, and I had to find a way in which that there was a balance that was spiritually edifying, and not just feeding pride. Because as humility, it does shine more of a spotlight on pride, and you become more aware of the inner depths of your pride that you do have. But with all this, to answer the question, this is truly an epidemic we have now, that so many people feel like they are doing the content or doing the bodybuilding or taking the drugs to set up their future, to make money, to get more likes. And it's taking them down such a dangerous path spiritually. And like I said, it's one of those things that you're just feeding pride. And the only way, honestly, to get out of it is you have to be humbled, which is not fun for anybody.
So,
it's something
Seraphim, real quick, give me 1 second real quick. I'm going to introduce my co-host real quick and bring him to the stage. He just arrived, okay? Hey, sorry about that, Cool Vic. I gave you the surprise guest intro real quick.
Yeah.
My esteemed, illustrious co-host, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you, Seraphim. Let me do a reintroduction. Cool Vic, this is Seraphim. And we have Dr. Moeller here, both of them Orthodox, really respected people in the community.
Trying to be.
And this is Cool Vic, by the way.
All right. Nice to meet you guys. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Thanks, Cool Vic. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we got a packed house today. So, matter of fact, just to brief you real quick, and everybody else joining in, I interrupted almost rudely Seraphim on his conversation about how we're looking at the West as far as men eagerly getting into fitness and then looking at this, basically another form of iconography. This is what this is, a different version of this, of self-idolatry online through Instagram, when we used to look at magazines to see our fitness superstars like bodybuilders, wrestlers, people like this. Back in the day, we had like Predator, which would be called Toxic Masculinity, the movie. Yeah. If we had this now, it would literally be banned. But we have transpose everything into an environment where everything is like ADHD. I got to scroll. I got to get the abs, everything right now. And I want, we're going to get back into what Seraphim was discussing. He was talking about this being a plague and an epidemic. That's what you're referring to, right?
Yeah, when we had magazines, I'm sure you can remember this. Bodybuilding was a very, very cult thing. You had to be in bodybuilding to a bit. If you were outside of bodybuilding, maybe you were a gym goer and you wanted to pick up Muscle and Fitness or Flex magazine to learn about the newest protein powder or creatine or something like that. And you would appreciate maybe a picture of Jay Cutler or Phil Heath, but it wasn't also attached to, how addictive the social media algorithms have become. And so, I put myself in the shoes of all the young men and women now that, I was very much seeking for an answer outside of Christ. When I was looking at the magazines, and I very much bid on, that fruit. And, I only empathize for those at the same age now that are also consuming the same type of attractive content, but it's also through a algorithm now that is so perfected at keeping them addicted, and to also very easily sell them on the dream of this. We see the trend twins, we see the epitomes of this. We can see how much money they're making, we can see the lifestyles they get. So it becomes attractive now from many angles. Back when we were looking at the magazines back in the day, it was really, you would look at Jay Cutler and be like, okay, that dude's got, the most amount of muscle, the craziest physique, but you didn't really care about his lifestyle outside of bodybuilding. Now with social media, bodybuilding is kind of this sell for how to also have this lifestyle. So I'm seeing now many people get into fitness, whether it's bodybuilding, whether it's running with the whole, kind of hybrid athlete, all this. Everyone's doing fitness now for what they can get out of it, as far as having a business, making money, the flashy lifestyle, getting the likes on social media. That's why so many people are doing whatever fitness modality now. It's to get the likes. And I'm sure you've encountered this within a lot of people in gyms now, that it's no longer that kind of hardcore bodybuilding or powerlifting feel in gyms now. Now it's very influencer focused. Now everyone's in there to, get the pump so they can post social media, or they want to, be someone on stage for the social media, for what they get out of it, rather than kind of the love of the game. Which, even with that, back when we were in the kind of magazine era, the love of the game was still dangerous in itself. It still fed vainglory, it still fed vanity, it still fed pride. But now you have it attached to all these other things. It is like I said, it's an epidemic, and it's a very, very dangerous trap.
I know I asked both of you a question, but Moeller, I want to direct this at you, Dr. Moeller, because that brings to mind, with the advent of social media and all these young men trying to look smacks and look a certain way. I think that, and this is just my own opinion, I don't know if you agree or not, Vic, but I think that if social media were to disappear, I think 90% of bodybuilding would evaporate that you see right now. True. Now, in regards to Dr. Moeller, this is where the question comes in with you. Do you think that the drug culture would also decrease? And do you think that social media has magnified drug culture in regards to the lack of knowledge in peptides and just following randomly, blindly, people doing things because they look a certain way, because what works for one may not work for another, and they're being led astray to some degree?
Oh, for sure. The funniest thing is, like, you guys would appreciate it. I know you can see it. The peptide thing is super fascinating to me, because I grew up in an age where if you wanted to get things, you couldn't just go on the internet and get it research purposes only. Like I said, I was natty until 30, and then I had my degree, and that's a whole other story before I started using things. But I know how people got them, and there's kind of more or less responsible or irresponsible ways. But I think at the end of the day, it's this Amazon I need it tomorrow thing. Like, I look at Ronnie Coleman and I'm like, dude was a cop. Like, he was just lifting, you know what I mean? It was like part of like what Seraphim was saying. There is that. I looked at Arnold and maybe he was doing it. There was definitely some vainglory, but there's a different amount of vainglory that can be fed when you don't have the phone, right? How many of us grew up and it's like, does it count if you go to the gym and you don't post a photo? You know what I mean? And like Seraphim saying, you get that feedback instantly. Oh, I got 7 likes. Okay. Like, and like Seraphim saying, is like, back then you at least had to be like, okay, I'm going to be on stage in 16 weeks. I got 16 weeks to prep. So there was at least, like you're saying, for that love of the game, some discipline, right? Like I still love the fact that I did those shows because I can look at food now and I have a completely different relationship. Oh, that's, 4 ounces of chicken. That's 20, 40 grams. Okay. How many? Blah, blah. I don't weigh it out on a scale, but it definitely helped me with discipline and some things that I'm very grateful for. So there were some quote unquote good things with it. But like you're saying, now it's like, oh, I see the Trend Twins. I want to be just like them. And the thing with gear back then, right, was like, oh, like how many people were fake natty, or at least you just didn't go around saying, hey, everyone, I'm on Trend, Tess, Ox, Clen, da-da-da. You at least like kept it under wraps. It was something like, I don't want to say an unspoken, like secretive thing. Like you'd be like, hey, is this guy ready for this? Like you kind of had to go and look for it. Where now it's already, you have people literally that are making up school communities to push, peptides, whatever it is, who are literally just trying to feed.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah.
It's crazy. The doses that I don't encounter much anymore. I fortunately now by the grace of God, I'm now working almost predominantly with fellow Christians within my coaching. So I don't work with it as much, but the years past, the doses I was seeing, like 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and I would tell them that, I'm back on my old channel, so I have my Seraphim channel, Braden channel. I was very open when I was competing. I would literally lay out the doses I was running, the compounds I was running, and people would think I was lying, saying, there's no way that's that's as little as I'm taking. And many of the pros I knew weren't taking near as much as what you would think. They wouldn't touch Trend unless it was the last few weeks of a contest prep, and even then it was a minor amount. I was running into kids running 700 milligrams of Trend a week to 1,000 or to a whole gram. And it's just now, the access of this, the access is so easy to get. And B, you now just have anybody, back in the day, we grew up in the forums days, we grew up when people were kind of underground talking about this stuff.
Bodybuilding.com.
There was, and there was, I think a healthy level of fear and respect around gear, now it's very much of, people think that there's just no risk, no danger at all. And you have these young men that they are willing to get there at no matter the cost. And with that too, we know this as we get older, that as we get older, we mature, and we that whole momentum more, we kind of we come to grips with life is shorter than we think, and it catches up to you real quick. And when you have these 17 to 25-year-olds that don't really care if it's cutting off years of their life, they are blasting absolute absurd amounts of gear, and the compounds they're running are insane. And it's just, it's truly such a dangerous spot, to be in right now.
So, and if I can, the other thing that compounds is there's so many things that are compounding. One, the social media thing, so they get on trend and they get huge, and therefore that grows their following. Right. And then whatever's absurd. Oh my gosh, you're doing how much Trend? Like most guys, I have a lot of young guys come to me and they're just like, oh, I heard, I got to start at least on 500 mgs of test a week, at least bare minimum, usually 1,000. And I'm like, dude, we do like, an actual TRT going over 200. The pharmacists call me and go, what are you doing? Right. But there's this feedback loop with money, VainGlory, dude, they're all feeding it, and then greed, lust, dude, it is the devil's just having his way with it because it's all just feeding each other, like the clavicular thing, right? Like he has become infinitely more popular. It was first was just look maxing, then he started talking about gear, right? And then it's like not only him, I can name plenty of other people, you're right, and he's even on amphetamines, he's on all kinds of stuff, but that gets clicks and likes. And there's a positive feedback loop, and that becomes part of and it's dug in your ego. I remember, like, just say in my late 20s, when I would take pictures with my shirt off and put it on Instagram, and I'd say to myself, and I wasn't Christian. I was trying to be Christian. I was kind of new agey, but I'd be like, I'd still try and check. I'm like, why am I doing this? And I'm like, well, I'm a doctor and I need to show people, I'm a doctor and I take care of myself. It's, self advertising is part of the game. But you do have to realize how sly the devil is about turning that against yourself, and how many of these people think they're doing good, right? Like these kids at 20, like, oh, I'm trying to help these 18-year-olds out. I'm like, dude, you don't even know basic biochemistry. But you know what I'm saying? Like the speed at which everything is going, like the speed at which someone becomes a mentor, the speed at which, you know, you become a specialist in peptide. You know, like I've seen peptide specialists that are making thousands of dollars on school or whatever. And I'm not here to rip on anyone in particular, but I'm like, you can go from 0 to 100 super quick nowadays. And it's just a huge feedback loop. It's problematic. And there's no way, unless you have breaks or something like we do as the church, to be like, why are you doing this? There's no reason for Clavicular to stop what he's doing. He's making more money. He's becoming more popular. Why would you not blast more gear?
So I would agree. So I'm gonna kind of bounce off of that for a second to refer to this and bring my co-host into this. Vic, there was a time when I first started, when I looked at magazines and wanted to be a bodybuilder, I just knew back in the day, it was more like a old school approach, less social media, less care about what people thought, more of like more of my heart is into this rather than my passion, if that makes any sense. More of like, I wanted to do this to push myself to see, you know, what good could I be? What potential do I have? It's not that way today, Vic, because when I went to a gym, I met somebody in a locker and said, hey, do you got it? And it's almost like a drug deal. What Dr. Moeller is talking about is exactly right. And this ties into what Seraphim was talking about, because back in the day, when somebody asked you about politics, are you Republican or whatever, it was rude to ask. When you asked them, it was like, oh, how dare you ask? Because nobody told you this. Drug culture was like this in the back in the day, because it's an illegal scheduled force controlled substance. So it's like, you were never going to tell anybody about this. Now, everybody has to tell you you're a Republican. It's almost like if you know a vegan's there, if they tell you they're vegan before you know that they're breathing in a room. Culture has changed so much to where it's like we have to wear labels before anything else that tells you how superficial society is. Mind you, I'm saying that, Vic, to tell you this. Before I started, all I was taking was like clenbuterol, because I thought clenbuterol, I was an idiot. I thought clenbuterol got you big, you know, and then I turned pro before I took anything, because I had a massive fear of needles, and people were like, there's no way that you won the California overall as a lightweight against supers and everybody. Like, I was just a genetic freak. And then I was like, well, in order for me to level the playing field, Vic, I was like, I have to do something, because these other people are genetic freaks. They're less than 1% of the population, just like me. And it's almost like as soon as I touched a piece of metal, it became a part of my DNA, and I just blew up. Now I added drugs into the mix, and the amount I was taking is what Seraphim was talking about. They wouldn't even believe what I was taking, because I was taking so minimal. It was like, there's no way, you're joking. They thought I was trolling. And then to hear what these kids were taking, as far as like, I'm not talking about like steroids. I'm talking about like Sustanon, hard antagonist pills that had to go ahead and go through 2 passes through the liver and beat the crap out of your livers before all this other stuff. It's the orals, it's the injectables, all this other stuff. When I started getting into this, I noticed that high blood pressure, when my weight got up to like 240 in the off season, all this complications happen. And at the end, Vic, it's like, I can look like Ric Flair. I can look like a mini, you know, Goliath and all this other stuff. But at the end of this, you go home, you have sleep apnea. You're wondering if you're even going to survive the next week, but you're like, well, I'm going to win. And it's almost like you're putting everything else before what you're really truly should be living for, Vic. And that's the mind that we had back in the day starting out, Vic. It was a different world back in the day. Now it's like just exponentially even aggravated worse.
Wow. Yeah, that's unbelievable. Yeah, I agree. And I see definitely how like the social media has influenced anything, because like you said, it's just different now. It seems like people are just doing it even more for that immediate self gratification. At least, you know, when you're doing competitions, you're actually working to like, you know, win something or earn something. Now it's like when you could just go there, you know, post up, you know, social media or whatever, and just get that immediate gratification. It's like, it's even, as you're saying, it seems like it's even worse than before, you know, because of all those things. So
well, and how much
I
of
could
it
definitely see all that.
It's shifted over to that now, where it used to be the whole point of me working out was if I'm a strongman, I have a competition. I don't ever remember strongmen being like, hey, dude, check out how big my thighs are or whatever. You know, and even bodybuilding, like I remember my first show, we were all covered, because I'm like, I can remember like I had my rival and I was like, oh, I wonder what his thighs look like. You know what I mean? I got to beat his thighs. And but now it's gone to the point where a lot of these people, right, they don't even participate in bodybuilding. They are just trying to look good with their shirt off, and they're trying to promote whatever they're selling, whether that is, if you're a bodybuilding coach or you're a trainer or you're selling peptides or supplements. So it's all becoming part of the sales. And unfortunately, like you're saying, if like when you joined the pro, Moses is like, he's doing gear, you're not going to beat him, you're not going to compete. So everyone has to participate, right? And the only way you stop doing this is by pulling out, right? And being like, I can't. Yeah, you can't not be a pro. There's no way you can be natty unless you're Mike O'Hearn, right? That guy's totally natty. So
Sure.
I love Mike, bro. You're a Chad. So
Mike's a good friend of mine. I competed and turned pro in Super League, and he was our Team USA coach, believe it or not.
That's cool.
So I talked to Mike sometimes, and I'm not going to talk about his natty status. So I don't want to piss him off. He's probably going to watch this later.
I love him, bro. I got to be able to rip on him. But I love all of it. He has some funny base memes. He's doing good things for the culture on that end. That's for sure.
Yeah, the whole "baby don't hurt me" is a crazy meme that's running amok right now. But that
guy. Yeah. I've seen that.
Yeah.
It's really crazy because when I hear Seraphim talk about his exit in the pros, I'm going to make a quick announcement real quick that I told you guys before. I am retiring. And I know I announced that I was going to do the New York Pro in the 212 class, and I was ramping up, and Dave Palumbo was saying, hey, we're going to, Mighty Mouse is coming back and all this. No, we're ending that right now because I have to cleave towards Christ. In order to do that, I have to get out of the mirror, because if I pick up my phone, why do I have like 73,000 billion selfies of myself here? Because we need progress pics. Yep. And it's like, when we look at this, it's like, I have less icons than pictures of me. Something's wrong with that. So if we think about this, it's like, I'm thinking more inwardly about, what I should look like and everything else. And I'm building an idol. To me, I saw a photo last week, a couple of photos, and it was something that really disturbed me. And if a bikini woman could dress like this, I was like, well, how am I different than her? Putting her glutes out on the internet, wearing little to nothing, and everybody else is clicking likes because they're not thinking about the competition. They're thinking about maybe your sex parts and things like this. And it's like, well, there's no modesty, to believe it or not. If you look at bodybuilding, where's the modesty? You crumple up the clothing in your fist like this, and that's all you're wearing, and it disappears in your fist. Like, nowhere in orthodoxy do I see a support system for this. Now, if we're talking about duty to serve other people, I don't see that in the pro ranks. And that's why I'm bowing out of the league. And I know I signed a contract with Old School Labs, literally ripped it up, gave him a call and sent him out. I know there's going to be disappointed people out there, but you know what? Christ is more important, and my salvation is way more important. To me, I just had to make that announcement. But back to you guys, as far as this, Seraphim, you've had a part to play in young men's lives when they're looking at fitness. What's the balance look like as far as like them being able to manage this and then being able to push social media away, and then looking at just health is health, right? There has to be some kind of distinction. What would that be? How would you talk to them about this?
Yeah. So first off, earlier, but I first off, congratulations. I know this was a very weighted decision that you've probably been, sitting with for quite a while. At least it was for me. And I'm honestly very happy, to hear you're on this side of it, and I'm very excited to see the transformation that's going to come. There's only going to be, beautiful growth that's going to come, on the other side of this. So, regarding, that question of the balance of how to do this in a healthy way, this is something that it literally took me a couple years to get to the point where I feel like I've gotten a decent on how to have fitness in a way that is spiritually edifying, but that doesn't at all become an idol or doesn't feed pride. And even with that, there's always, checks that I have to do within myself. So, the biggest thing is having fitness that you very much, essentially should be taken away from social. You are to sit down with yourself and think, if you are on a desert island, nobody knows what you're doing, what type of fitness, is truly going to be something you actually enjoy, that is going to, help your health, whether that is feed strength, whether that's feed endurance, whether that's both, whether that's functionality. But what's something that you do completely apart from social media? Because that is the biggest thing that I feel like people are doing so many actions, and it doesn't even have to just be fitness. We're all doing so many actions now with what could get us more popularity online, or what someone across the street thinks of us, or something like that. So first off is what would you do if you were on a desert island? And then lean into that, and if there is a way in which you can help someone through this, then that's even better, to where you can serve others. So that's where we have a lot of very extensive knowledge with say nutrition. A lot of my coaching works with a lot of fellow Christians who, no fault to them, just growing up in a poor education system that doesn't teach very much nutrition. They have no idea how to eat, and so it's teaching people how to lay out meals properly, and do it in a healthy way. And same thing with fitness. But with that, if you are someone that is kind of this type A, you get a lot of or motivation, a lot of discipline through fitness, then it is something that we very much have to constantly check within ourselves. Is this becoming an idol in our life? And it doesn't just have to be bodybuilding. It doesn't just have to be strength sports. This can very well, you can very well do this with anything. You can do this with running. Anything can become an idol, to where you're having it replace something in your life that either it's feeding pride directly. This is causing just the pride in self. Or it is actually taking away from time or energy that you very well could put into seeking Christ. It should be something that we know as Orthodox Christians, everything we do in life should be spiritual. So our working out, our fitness should be spiritual. So if it's not spiritual, and it is feeding self, and it's feeding vainglory, it's feeding pride. I had a comment today on one of my old fitness videos, where a man was talking about he's been given an obedience by his spiritual father to quit his gym membership. And he did it because it was feeding lust. It was feeding, and we can go off on a whole other conversation on modern gym environments. I truly believe that there is something demonic to a lot of gym environments now. It is, if we think about this on a, think when we go to church, everyone in church putting all of their energy and focus into seeking Christ. Now, when we go into a modern gym, the maybe it's not everybody in there, but the vast majority of people are in there seeking lust, they're seeking vanity, they're seeking vainglory. It is very much a demonic environment. That can be a whole other conversation. But that this is something that it's absolutely a journey, and it's something that you kind of have to find the balance with. Because I also then tried to, I very much recognized within myself that fitness as a whole, not just strength training, fitness was an idol in my life. So I kind of went the other direction for a period of time and pulled way back on working out. I didn't stop, but I even saw how that took it too far the other direction. And there is a level of the discipline we get from training that definitely absolutely carries over to the spiritual life. So this is very much a balancing act that I think everybody has to figure out for themselves. It's one of those things, if we keep our eyes focused and our main intention in life is seeking God and seeking to love God with all of our heart, soul, and mind, then this will ultimately get figured out. But it's one of those things of, what's your main goal in life? Is your main goal in life to become, a pro bodybuilder? And is, frankly, that, goal coming from you wanting likes and follows on social media? That, if we are truly seeking God, then God's will be worked through our life. It's one of those things that God will have us, through his providence, we will, do what his will is. So it's one of those things that I think we too many times are trying to control and micromanage everything in our life, when many times we just need to have full faith and trust in God and have kind of the hands-off, approach. And this includes fitness, this includes health. And so we touched on it earlier, but you know, I'm very much in the same way as Dr. Michael, that, you know, to find a balance with nutrition, I don't track meals. I'm not saying someone else shouldn't track meals, because I think, and I have a lot of my clients that are very to you know, setting up diets. They need to have the time where they figure out, okay, well, how much is enough protein? How much is, you know, too much carbs, too much fat? But if I was to do this, at least for an extended period of time, then it very much can be something that I become hyper focused on. Now it feeds back into, okay, well, you know, this is going to feed into my physique. Now I'm looking at myself, versus, you know, I now can, you know, very easily, naturally, and intuitively eat healthy. And it's something that, you know, this should all feed back into health, and it should absolutely support our walk towards Christ, and not become something that feeds the ego. That's better than done. This is just something that takes a balancing act and a figuring out for oneself.
So I have a question for Dr. Moeller real quick. We're going to go back to drugs real quick, because when I think about drugs, I'm like, we go to the expert in the field. I know it's naturopathy, but I think it's adjacent. It's too close enough. Trenbolone and other PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs, produce godlike physiques in months, so people say. Is the trend culture among young men a rational response to female hypergamy and visual competition, or is it chemical self-harm dressed up as self-mastery to you?
Man, well, you know, it's so funny. Even I can piggyback those things what Seraphim was talking about, because it's like,
there you go.
You know, are we in strip clubs anymore? Like, you know, have you seen those jokes about, like, you know, am I in the 90s strip club, or am I in like a 2025 gym? You know, I don't know about you guys.
Yeah,
like,
that's so true.
Honestly, it's dark.
It is true.
Clothes, the girls are like, wait, what is going on here? Some of the women have less clothes on, and and men too. I'm not trying to, you know, pick sides. Men are just as bad. But it is still that instant gratification culture. Like, you're going in, there's also a level of, like, when you watch Pumping Iron, and I would love to ask you guys in your experience of going to the gym. I remember when I used to go to the gym and, you know, 18, I'm 36 now. I'd know everyone. I'd go in, hey, and, you know, maybe you run into the guy. You're like, oh, I don't have 30 minutes, but heck, it's Seraphim. I love the guy. Let's chat. And the gym, at least for me, and I'm in Idaho now, it's a little bit better here, but in Southern California, everyone's in there doing their own thing. Like, I don't really get that camaraderie anymore. It could be just the gym that I'm at, but I've been to multiple gyms. And like Seraphim was saying, everyone comes in and they're just zoned in on themselves. I'm here to do my workout. I don't want to meet friends. I miss that part. Like, I try and get friends. And a small piggyback is, you probably know that not only with Trend, but even like with Nandrolone, a lot of these things, dude, they mess with your brain. I mean, not speaking from experience, but, you know, they definitely, testosterone, at least we can say that boosts your confidence, gives you more energy, makes you more outgoing. But I mean, for sure, Nandrolone is progestin. It's like, it can get into some progesterone metabolites. Obviously, with Tren, you have all forms of psychosomatic plays on dopamine and serotonin. And so again, you know, butting off what Seraphim was saying, like, these things do impact our spiritual warfare. Because we have negative and positive feedbacks. I'm going to the gym, I'm getting bigger, I'm feeling better. And so, like with the trend culture, it's just, dude, it's just a positive feedback loop. And it's interesting because, you know, when you chatted earlier, Moses, about the iconography thing, right? They're literally worshiping, they're in the mirror. And look, I'm still vain. I still show a little bit of my shoulders when I'm working out. I try and tell myself that I'm doing it. And I like watching the pump, being like, okay, am I pressing myself? My veins are popping. Definitely some vanity there. But there's also, I'm not going to lie, there's positive feedback. Like, if I'm watching my watch when I'm running, how far am I going? There's this very tight balance there between how am I getting better? Because you do, right? You're in there like, I want to get better every day, but I'm not like, I want to compete against myself and give all glory to God. And look, I'm not a good prayer, but one thing since becoming into the church, like, I really try and do prayers before I go into the gym. You know, there's one on purity that's in the smaller black book. You know, I'm single. So like, Lord, just little things like that. The one for work, the one for purity, and then try and do a psalm before or after, where that's like Psalm 91 or Lord is my shepherd, something that can help me as I go in there. And I also want to, you know, defend this culture, because I don't know about you guys. When I look at me, like, I was 16 where I had a cell phone. Facebook was just becoming a thing. I was in college, and you know, that party last night was awfully crazy. You know, I hope they taped it. They didn't put it on Facebook. Like that was a thing, right? There was not this instant, like, dude, these guys, I feel bad for them because number one, they're 19. Like, you know what I mean? You'd go into your gym, there'd be that one guy bigger than you, and there's 100 people. And like, I'm sorry, at 19, I want to be the biggest guy. And that's vain, but there is also a level of comparing yourself to other people and knowing that you're not reaching your potential, right? There is that angle, right? Like if I'm a man and I want to make it in the world, I should push myself to my utmost potential. Now, with that being said, I only had 2 guys in my gym that I would work with, and I'd even work with them. Oh, he's doing 70 on the dumbbells. I'm going to do 75s, you know, pressing ourselves, hopefully in good competition. But now every kid at 19 can get on and be like, oh, look at the Trend Twins. You know, like, I don't know about you guys. When I looked at Greg Plitt was my guy. Like, I really liked his aesthetic, you know, and that's why I really liked I'm so glad they brought in the physique because
I got a picture with him before he died, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Rest in peace. Yeah. And again, he was a guy that I believed when I listened to his motivational videos. Army Ranger, like woke up every morning. And I think he'd have shot those videos, like Sarah from saying, whether he got a like or not, you know, and I really like that example of like, if I'm on an island somewhere and no one knows what I'm doing, I'm, you know, sorry, I do have my shirt off. I'm doing push-ups. I'm still working out, but am I taking pictures and posting it? And I want to defend these guys that they're inundated with this, right? They had their cell phone at 8 years old. Like this is what everyone does. You know what I mean? And I think these are important conversations for us to have, for them to be like, hey, look at all of us, dude. We went down that path. There's nothing at the end. Right? There's vanity, there's greed, there's lust. It's dangerous. You may think you can play. And look, go to church, get a spiritual father, fast, do all those things that you should be doing. But you're going to get caught. The drug thing is the worst because, like you're saying, dude, the amount that they're coming, they think more is better. And I don't know about you guys. I can remember when I first got in that, like the idea on growth hormone was like, take as much as you can afford kind of thing. And that's what I see with gear now. And I am glad because I've heard more people like Bum said, be like, dude, I'm running, you know, 200, 200 and 100. Like I'm not doing 1,000, like 200 tests, 200 Angela and 100. Like, okay. And, you know, I would actually I hope that we get the ability, because in the field I do lots of testosterone replacement. And I actually think there is a place, like in the way we're using retatrutide for weight loss and whatnot. I think they can be used responsibly. If you're a 60-year-old and you're going in for back surgery, why we know what nandrolone does. Like why wouldn't, and they do that in Europe, give them a little bit of nandrolone. But the issue is now we've gone off the rails where it's all, how much can I take? How big can I get? And I feel for them. We should pray for them. We should do our best to be good examples for them. The example that both Moses and Seraphim had, like awesome, right? Hopefully they see that and be like, hey guys, we did that. And ultimately too, on my end, I'm like, dude, it's not healthy. You only your life there, like, you know, rest in peace, Dallas McCarver. Like you can go down the list of these guys that, you know, lost their lives early. So, but you're like, you know, a lot of those guys, this is the other thing I wanted to highlight, that it's difficult for the young guys, like, you know, inflation, housing, just overall meaning the dating scene. Maybe we get into that. This is their last ditch effort. Well, I can't get this girl. She's 20. She's dating this 35-year-old millionaire. Maybe I can take a ton of trend and get popular on YouTube. Like that's where they're at. Unfortunately.
Oh, we're getting into that. We're getting into that, especially when it comes to dating culture. One thing I'd like to touch on is you really hit a certain topic. And back in when I was doing this, like picture me if I was going to do the New York Pro, I still had the same mentality of dig deep, work ethic. I'm going to a really dark place and I'm going to experience a lot of pain. I look for pain. Like I really look for pain. There's some purest aspects of bodybuilding that I would hold on to, like me. And you've called this a pain tunnel, Braden. You call this so, but as far as me, I just say, I'm just looking for pain. I think that if we're leaning into suffering and we're doing this, I think that for us to sacrifice to some degree, I think that can transfer over into other arenas, right? If I'm in the gym, this is how I do it. If I was going to go to the gym, get ready, I actually put on a hoodie, I block the world out, and I don't want anybody to see what I look like. And I'm getting ready for a fight. That's how I feel, because there's Russian people taking 19-hour flights to come here, or Germany, UK, or whatever this is, just to destroy me because I have USA on my back. And that's how I viewed it. I was like looking at Ivan Dragov flying here, and I'm like Apollo Creed not wanting to die because we know what happened in the movies. And when I look
Yeah.
into this, it's like, since I'm black, of course I'm going to look at Apollo Creed, but what happens to him? And I don't want that to happen, because if I'm wearing the stars and stripes, so I looked at this from like a patriotic point of view, and I looked at this from a Frank McGrath view when he had the ads of, he's in a dark place and all this. Dallas McCarver, I hung out with him all the time. We were underneath the same contract with Honest Egg Whites. He was a good friend. When I found out what happened, and now we have this epidemic of people dying. We just had a 22-year-old pass away because of who knows what. Maybe they'll list the drug use, maybe not. I don't know. George Peterson died, right? He was in a different category. So when we have this epidemic of people dying to look a certain way, it's almost like I had this mentality, and this may sound psychotic to maybe you guys, but Seraphim may be like, I was once there. I will run through a wall. And if I die, I just happen to die, but at least I know the wall got hurt and destroyed in the process of doing this. You have this mentality where you go into the space where it literally is the most insane thing to a normal person, and you're in a crazy space where it's like, if I die in the process of taking you out, I at least took 50 people out. And it's almost like this crazy self-deletion bomber mentality when you're getting ready for a show. But now when I look at the young kids now, I'm tripping over tripods in the gym. Oh, I'm sorry, I walked in the middle of your set while you're recording.
Yeah.
It's not the same world of like going to a dark place. It's like going into a bright place. There's cameras flashing, there's glutes. And now it's like, I don't even want to look in the gym and keep my head down, because I might see somebody's ass, because they're wearing stripper clothing in the gym. And it's not the same thing that I like. I want a receipt for the years of like false idolatry getting back, but I can't get a refund for this. It's like I lost time. So to all the young kids getting into this, you're going to be looking at the end of nothing from what Dr. Bull is talking about, and you're not going to have a receipt. There's no return for any of this. What are you going to get for this? So it's like, what are we chasing here? You're either going to chase your own end to look good and be a beautiful body in the grave, or you're going to be further away from Christ. And as a pro, I didn't see anything that was helping me out toward this path. Vic, as far as wrestling, you've seen a lot of good physiques, right? And it's like, people ask what's behind all this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. I was thinking, because you guys are talking about the gym and like how it's kind of like a seedy, like a strip club almost. And one thing that I've been saying is that like we need to bring back like gender specific gyms. Like we need to bring back men only gyms or women only gyms. But I feel like I've seen women only gyms, but I feel like men only gyms, it's like, as of right now, it's something we can't have because it's automatically seen as like, oh, it's sexist, it's anti-women. And it's really a shame, because I think that there should be, men only spaces, especially like that, where we're not like distracted by, women that are going in there working out, wearing whatever, and we could just go, work out and not have to worry about things like that, I think.
There's so much lust involved in this. And it's like when you couple this with testosterone, when the breeze would like set you off, you guys know what I'm talking about. And then you have gym culture where people are wearing whatever they want to because of body acceptance. Like, girl, you should not be wearing that. Even if you thought you look good, you don't. Like in the things that people are getting away with now, it's like, it's crazy. It has changed into almost like a Sodom. Gyms are Sodom now, basically, because you have now dudes wearing almost nothing, which is really weird. Their shorts are like not even there. And then you have women wearing bikinis or lingerie and saying they're getting away with this. But when you couple drug culture with this, it exasperates this even more. So now you have this materialistic playground in the gym, maybe one of the most dangerous place for somebody entering into Christian ethics or orthodoxy or any of that stuff.
For sure. And, and that's why too, if you're, and look, I'm a baby, I'm like 4 years into the church, and, there's a lot of growth that I think is happening with our culture as orthodoxy is really starting to take in its roots. And so you really need to tap into the fathers, listen to, and it's great. We have Father Moses, like, is a phenomenal example. Like, we actually have some priests because, the church has always done a good job of staying true, but knowing how to feed the sheep that are coming in, right? Because look, I'm a damaged sheep for sure, right? If anyone knows, we've only chatted, I was in the New Age and I did all these psychedelics and, but we, luckily, God gave us Seraphim Rose. He was here for when we needed him. And right. And, not to boast on Father Moses, but like, we have in this culture, and luckily we have a guy like him for a lot of young men. Now we have men like Seraphim, Moses. We have young men that can come in now and look at this. So if someone's watching, I'd say, hey, read the fathers, and we have recent saints that, you know, there is ways that this can definitely be hesychastic, right? There is ways that, like you're saying, like I'm deadlifting, I'm working out, this can definitely bring you close to Christ because you are denying yourself, right? The issue is like when I start doing it for my ego. If you go in there, hey, I'm going to go work out really hard today so I'm strong, so I can be at work, so I can be there for my kids and for my community. God, I really hope God blesses that, and you work hard and you become disciplined, you become a great man for your community. The issue is when you're switching that around, being like, I just want to look good, right?
Yeah, I think that we have a duty to others and we are to serve other people. But I think that when all you're doing is serving yourself and this aids in nobody, meaning like one of the things that I had a client that we both know really well, I told him, I was like, I don't care how you look. I just care about your ability to defend your family when the time
Yep.
comes where you're not dependent on the gun, when you're
Yeah.
not depending on being like a weapons instructor or any of this
Yeah.
stuff. To me, it's about being of service to other people in your family. And to me, that was like the number one thing I harped on. That's why I was like, leg days are important and all this. But back to this, I think you bring up a really compelling point when we think about the purpose in why we're doing this. Like, what is the grounding behind why you walk into this to suffer? Like, what is your personhood as far as like in the arena of like building a body? What does that look like to you? And I know Vic has been in the wrestling arena for a long time of doing promotions, all this other stuff. He's probably got some stories for you when it comes to people doing whatever they had to do to look a certain way. And he's probably seen a lot of fake images and personas people put on. And a lot of this is part and parcel with fitting into this culture. But when you talk about this being a purist, saying that, okay, I'm looking at this for what duties I can get to my family, the service to my community, and how I can help others. And also, I want to be healthy. It's a super thin line. And I think Vic would agree with that as well, too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When I was there, because I was like a promoter in like what the late 2000s, early 2010s, like the first half. I stopped in 2016, and I didn't really like see anything too crazy. There weren't a lot of guys, like there were like a few, and you could tell, but there wasn't a ton of people there. In like the independent wrestling, when you're not in like WWE or anything, you don't really see too many guys that are taking it. But the ones that I did see, it was funny. There's one guy in particular that I know Marte knows of, and he's like this huge guy, and you could tell like, oh, he's on something, because he was huge, like ridiculously huge, and he was like the biggest guy in the locker room. But I remember there was a period of time, for whatever reason, he had to lay off the gas for a little bit, and I don't know why, but he had to stop taking it for whatever. And I remember I saw him and just completely deflated. And I was like, holy crap. Everyone knew like, oh yeah, this guy is not on the gas. And yeah, and then later, like a few months later, he was back on it, because you could tell he swelled back up again. But that's like the wildest story that I can think of, is just how crazy it was, like how much he shrank down once he stopped. It was nuts. But yeah, that's the most that I got, really.
Yeah,
I got nothing really
the
crazy.
tough part is a lot of it does become part of your self-image. You know?
Yeah. And it's definitely part of his self-image now, because that's his whole persona. He's like this.
Yeah.
He's known for being this really big guy. So it's almost like he can't really stop now, because, I've seen it, what he looks like when he's not on it. And it would just he wouldn't really be anything.
Very dangerous place to be, by the way, too. I think
Mhm.
Seraphim would agree with me on this, because I've seen his content. And Seraphim, you were talking about your identity, almost like the body dysmorphia when it comes to this. And once you lose that, I'm kind of in a quandary myself, I'll even admit. Like, I'm so used to being the monster. I remember walking into a Walmart and this woman dropped her cup or whatever she was drinking, because I was like, oh, I forgot I had just had my tank top on. I should have put on whatever. And when we think about this, when we lose that, it's almost like, who are you? And I've struggled with that more so now till I got to this point. I think it's lessening then. I'm pretty sure you went through that kind of a journey too, when it comes to the image and releasing that identity of maybe the self-gratification, the idolatry, maybe even the materialism aspect in all this. And it's like, how do you think that this messes with people's minds? And what do you think that men can do when approaching fitness to avoid doing that?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a big journey that I went through. I very much had, a lot weighing on me. One, it's kind of that whole thing of letting the whole, being the biggest guy in the gym, and, everybody would always be coming up asking, when's your next show, all of that. So one, your identity with people in person, and then, especially when you have, business, if you're a coach, a health and fitness coach, then, you think a lot of it does come back to your image. So, I wrestled with a lot of this when, I retired, and then even on the other side of bodybuilding, when I was still just gung ho about, just training, hardcore all the time. It was very much me refusing to fully let off and let go of that image. And it was something that frankly had to kind of get burned off of me after multiple bouts. So, this is where, I publicly talked about my journey coming off, TRT, and I had to get to the point, I say this, I don't put this on anyone else. This has been my journey, what I needed for my own spiritual development. I see the cases and the arguments for healthy peptide use or hormone use. So I don't get into anybody else's. This is between them and their spiritual father. For me personally, I had to come off TRT. For me, it is pride in a bottle. Like where I'm at now, after multiple PCT attempts to fully come off, it was something that I truly had to get to the point where I gave to God. It increased my trust and faith in God. And I'm at the point where, I absolutely still have a very solid amount of strength. I am on blood work. I'm healthier than I've been since I've been tracking my blood work, now being off. And I very much can support and provide and protect my family. So for me, if I was to touch, testosterone again or a peptide, it would be for vanity reasons. It would be for pride, or it would be for me trying to chase strength numbers or something like that. And so once again, all of these things, it's been a very much of a journey, whether that was, coming off TRT and then going back on because I got the bug again, or, got convinced looking around in the gym, or convincing myself because I saw a number on a blood work panel that I didn't like, that I needed it. This is very much a journey I had to go through, to release this. It's very much not a overnight thing to kind of release your attachment to your image and all of that. The beautiful thing is through the process and on the back side of it, not only does it increase your trust and faith in God, but when you do truly get to the point where by the last PCT attempt, it took 3 PCT attempts. I was 100% at the point of, I'm fully giving this to you. If I lose my entire brand online, so be it. Let your will be done. And it was out of that then there was so much beauty on the other side, and I so much more peace within myself. And I very much am, by the, glory to God that, I can now train in a way that I am not really caring about my image or anything like that. So to answer your question, how would someone approach this if they are not on that side, before they get started and get wrapped up into it? I don't know. This is such a tricky question, because it's one of those things of like, you're getting close to the fire, and I'm the type of person in my life, I've had to burn myself to kind of learn the lesson. You know what I mean? We see many monks like Saint Porphyrios or Saint Paisios, that it's like they came out of the womb with like an added level of holiness. They knew they were going to Mount Athos before the age of 10. That's not been me. I am very much a sinner, and I many times have to fall in order to kind of quote unquote learn the lesson. And then out of that creates a lot of repentance, yada yada yada. But the point is I don't know if the answer is some men need to kind of be a little bit an all-in approach, because I've seen the opposite effect. I've seen when men don't have any focus at all on training. We see this a lot in the Orthodox community with these men that are so into theology and apologetics, and they have no care at all to their physical health. There's also, we see, there's a lot of pride thing that comes out of that, but also this discipline that we get from training like this, and from the eating and all of this, if we allow it, can absolutely directly carry over to our spiritual lives. We're not monastics ourselves, we're in the world, but we still can have a very robust prayer rule. We can now fast at a maybe a more intense level. Once again, this should be worked out with your spiritual father, but for me, because of all the dieting I've done, all this, I get more, I would say, spiritual fruit from fasting, at a little bit greater depth. The point is we can carry the discipline, we can carry the quote unquote almost asceticism. And I'll say this for me personally, that on the backside of all of this, when you do lose the attachment to your image regarding bodybuilding, I now have so much more empathy for my clients that, all these years, I'd be working with clients and not understand when they come to me and it's so hard for them to work out, like you should want to work out. Like there's the motivation now for me to go in and do a leg day, or for me to go in and do the training I have that day, when I don't have the attachment at all to my image or putting on social media or anything, now it actually takes a level of, I actually have to be disciplined to go do this. And once again, that discipline, very much if we structure it through a good daily routine, very much can carry over to our prayer rules, our fasting rules, all of this. So it's absolutely something needed. We need to have discipline, and I'm not even saying everyone needs to go kind of hardcore into fitness or anything like that. Everybody here, has been created so uniquely by God that this is just what I've needed in my life. But I would say for those that are, having a proclivity to fitness and pushing themselves that way, they might have to come close to kind of maybe burning themselves with the fire. It's just, I would very much caution against anything that is feeding any level of pride. It's not to say you can't do something. We can do the same action and we can do it in a way that we do so humbly, or we can do so in a way that feeds pride. But what we're talking about here is very easy to feed pride. So it's one of those things we just always got to check within ourselves. Always have a good relationship with your spiritual father where you're very open. You can discuss these things with them. And always just, be checking. And always, the main thing is keep Christ always at the forefront. That should be the main, I wish that, the kind of type A intense personality I am, that I go all in with things. I wish I would have found orthodoxy when I was so young. I mean, who knows what that would look like now? But the point is, it's like, it would be amazing if these men were taking the same kind of attitude that they're pushing towards, building up a following on social media or trying to be the biggest guy in the gym. Well, what if it's them actually seeking Christ with that intensity? I mean, it's hard to tell a young guy that's not, already kind of gone through a lot of what we've experienced, but we see this with our saints, Saint Paisios, Saint Porphyrius. They from a very young age were doing that. So, besides the kind of just easy answer of seek Christ, put Christ at the forefront, that's kind of the main thing here.
I think that if you started earlier, you would have been beard maxing and your beard would have been twice as long. Just to be honest with you, it would have been like Duck Dynasty would have super been jealous of what would happen. But I want to bring this over to Dr. Moeller. I have a serious question. So there's a paradox that I'm going to ask you. Male vanity versus the declining health paradox. You as well as I know, and Seraphim here, and even Vic knows that inactivity is one of the biggest diseases in America that's plaguing us right now. Like, matter of fact, it's been so abhorrent right now that the military enlistment rates have declined because of this. So in terms of this, why are more investing in aesthetics like gyms, grooming, self-care, steroids, social media, while male life expectancy like testosterone, fertility, obesity, and mental metrics worsen?
Yeah. Why is that happening? Oh man.
Yeah.
How long do we got here, man? I mean, it's tough because I think, it's kind of like that example that we're all swimming in it. I always go through the examples. Like I grew up in a small town and I swam in a pond and it was, next to a field sprayed with glyphosate, which is latent it's toxic to my latex cells. So I'm swimming in toxic soup, and I think we all have the advantage here of like coming into the church because the church has a good way of like shaking you out of like, wow, holy cow, I didn't realize the presuppositions that the world has given me. Because how many of it's you're told when you're young, be a strong male, and we were raised with the Predator and whatever Arnold, Sylvester Stallone movies, and like I said, there can be some gems in that, but we're just inundated with the culture on one end. And then the other thing that was terrible, like, dude, I grew up, right? Fruit Loops, pot, like just junk food, there was no nutrients in it. And for a vast majority of us, right, in the years that we were like, I was supposed to be 6'3". I'm hardly 6'1". And that's what I have I have like 4 cousins that are over 6'4". And, I blame like, well, because I was eating Fruit Loops and McDonald's and stuff all the time, and, it's chemicals in the water, it's the perfumes, it's the deodorants, it's the shampoos, it's the blue light, it's the lack of fraternity, just like that whole thing I talk about going into the gym, right? Like we know that there's like a study on soccer players, and when their team lost, their testosterone went down. When they won, their testosterone went up. And this is what I'm saying is I'll defend the young guys in a little bit. Like no wonder they have no testosterone, because they have, I don't know how to say that nicely, they don't have a lot going for them. Like as far as can they make money? The girls, there's more women in college making more money than them. They're now competing. Like I said, at 19, I didn't have to worry about my 19-year-old girlfriend being DM'd by some guy who's 35. Maybe in the gym, but that was back when I was weird. But now that's like a whole thing, where these young girls OnlyFans, like. So I really feel for these young guys that I'm saying like this is the way they see their way out. But I'd say that's the way the devil has them pinned down. And there are ways out, but it's just the longer way. Like what Seraphim had to go through. It took 3 PCTs. It's not, but that is the path. And they've been sold that, hey, I'm going to buy it and get it on Amazon tomorrow. And it's the same thing with your hormones. Like definitely, like if you're trying to get your hormones fixed, go natural as long as possible. Right. And that's with all things, weight loss. I had a patient come to me and he's down 20 pounds in 6 months. And, he just dieted and exercised. Surprise, surprise. Like he didn't need retatrutide. But that's the culture that they're swimming in now, is that, like I think the culture we are raised in is like, oh, only, extreme guys go on TRT, or, oh, he's on clenbuterol or whatever it is. Like that's dangerous, right? Ephedra. We had the whole, like, even ephedra was dangerous.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Extreme Orange. Remember that?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, Hydrox. I mean, we had, right. I was shelling out a ton of Jack 3D when all that stuff was going on.
So crazy.
Oh man, I never have those good old days back. So it's tough, man. And I like I said, I give them empathy, and I say you got to do the best you can do. Just again, you go out to a restaurant and you see young kids, they're all on their phone. Like we didn't even have that temptation, right? When I was 23, we had one of our friends had a smartphone, and we'd argue and be like, hey, who did win the World Series in 2002? Like that was the extent of it. You didn't like, oh, what is, Instagram, what's going on there? So, and I really feel for the women, because the women more than anything, right? It's birth control, it's perfumes, it's hairspray, all that stuff's wrecking their hormones. And then you put them on birth control, and we know that, right? That they're basically stuck in the second half of their cycle. So that they don't even want the masculine men, right? So you have these 17-year-old guys who are trying to make it. The girls are on their birth control. They're not even attracted to the guy who's actually hustling and working hard. And at the end of the day, what's the best he can do it? When I was 17, I freaking making $6 an hour. The best I could do, I got a job at GNC, and I got, a little bit of commission for selling a C4 here or there. But it's tough for them, man. And, especially you're in a world that's where you're going to get all of your value. You're cooked. Right. And if you're coming into the church, you're like, hey, my value is like being a member of the church, supporting my brothers. You just go to coffee hour, stay long, set up the tables, take out the trash, do what you can, be involved. That's what's been, I think, a safe haven for the fluxing of young men coming in Orthodox. Like, dude, how many of us stay for like 3 hours at coffee hour? Like that's the highlight of most of our week. Like getting together, like that used to just be like, I can remember my dad, right? He's in the Moose Lounge growing up. Like that's what they did on Tuesday. Like the men got together like men. That boosts your testosterone, right? Fraternity boosts it. And so these young guys now, they're just growing up in a world where it's like, I don't know what to tell you. Go to the Moose Lounge. It's like, it doesn't exist. Like I remember growing up and we'd had our county fair. Everyone went to the county fair, right? It's on Thursday night. Like people don't do that anymore. So I think the first step is realizing that the soup that you're swimming in is toxic. And then you have to be super vigilant, blue light blocking, getting to bed on time. Don't take antibiotics unless you need them. Sometimes you need meds, right? Get a good doctor on board. I'm not an anti-med guy. I'm a naturopathic doctor. And I often have to defend them more than I support, then I go against them because we kind of swung the other way on certain things. Like there's a time and place for everything. But ultimately for these young guys, you have to realize like, and God put you here for a reason, dude. Like you guys out there, we were put here. Like we've got God given our battles. He knows what you can do. And it is our martyrdom. It is your suffering. Like we're not getting through this. And all the saints, they've all been in a situation like, look, I'm not being like, having my skin burned off and filleted alive, but I have to deal with the toxic soup and the dating culture of today. It is what it is. Pick up your cross. And ultimately you can help everyone around you when we stick together instead of, getting super combative and just getting upset about it. So it is what it is, but we can get through it.
Dating culture is horrific these days. Let me tell you a story real quick. I went to the gym today and it feels weird not having to force feed myself. Seraphim knows what I'm talking about. When you've already eaten, but you're like, I need to put more food in, eat regardless if I'm hungry or not. We're literally like, it's literally promoting gluttony to be an IFBB pro. But back to this, I was in the gym. He's nodding his head. He agrees. He knows what I'm talking about. It sucks. It's one of the worst things. It's tougher than working out, actually. The plate.
Brother, it's now me. I now have to be intentional with making sure I eat because I'm still sick of food to this day.
Yeah, I'm so tired of. So I go to the gym. And I'm there and I'm like, of course, I got my headphones on. I'm focused. I look across the gym and this guy gets turned down and shot down. This woman shoots him down like 3 different times. Right. So he goes across the gym and talks to another woman, picks her up. So the woman who sees him pick up this other woman automatically gets upset, pursues him, and then starts sabotaging his new situation. So it's like, that doesn't make any sense. So if we think about this, men have a lot going against them, as it is. Already we have feminism as a result. And then men are trying to combat this by saying, oh, she wants 6-pack, 6 figures and all this. I may not have 6 figures, but I can get 6-pack and I can tweeze, I can microneedle, I can do all this. Oh, I can get on gear.
I can bone smash.
Yeah, you could do all this, but I think that it is it's a stark hyperbole when it comes to the man side in a reflection of like what women are demanding. And I think that's a way to be led by women. If you're doing all this because you want the woman and you want to look good for the beach, I think that if me and Seraphim wanted to look good and do bodybuilding, we wouldn't have been in bodybuilding and turned pro, to be honest, because if the woman left, we have no reason to actually do this anymore. But I think a lot of men are leaning towards looks maxing and doing all this as a result of following women. And that's something that I surmise. Maybe I'm wrong. Could you guys tell me if I'm wrong or not? But I think that may be one side result of that.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I mean, I think so much of what with everything, even on social media, I think it all comes back to that. So yeah.
Yeah, and it is giving into feminism. It's like giving them what they want. It's like your best bet, dude, just don't participate in it. Like, go to church and be a man and then let the woman, like, that's not a masculine thing to do, is to participate in a system that is against you and you think you can beat them at their own game. Like, that's the kind of the look maxing thing. Like, well, if I just become, just as beautiful or whatever, like, that's what the women do. Like, let them do that,
right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So Vic, in regards to feminism, do you see that happening now on social media? If you're scrolling, you'll see guys care about their looks and spend more time in the mirror sometimes when it comes to, because they're following patterns of this. Do you think you yourself, because you cover a lot of feminism, and we know the Shapiros of the world are pretty feminine themselves because they're really emotionally reactive. I think that men are softening as a result of this because they're caring about external instead of hard work and merit-based activities like going hiking for some reason has fallen out of style. And it's like we care about how you look rather than what you're doing and the purpose now. And I see that now we have more emotional men like Brian Shapiro. We have more emotional people out there responding to everything. And it's like we're mirroring women. Do you see that as well too in society?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do, and I completely like agree with like clavicular. When I first saw this
Yeah.
dude and like it's like the looks maxing thing, I was like, oh man, that's kind of gay, like a little bit, like because it's like you are competing with like the women, and that's like, well, that's not something that as men, that's what we should be doing, like the pretty boy type of deal. Remember like younger when you would see the pretty boy, like the pretty boy would kind of get made fun of. It's like it's good to like take care of yourself, have good hygiene, and like look nice. But when you overdo it, like to become the pretty boy, it is like we would always make fun of that guy, like, oh man, the pretty boy over here, look at this guy, And we're definitely, especially with social media now, where you get that immediate gratification, and I think it's starting to become a little bit worse. But yeah, I agree. Like that's not the way men should be going. It should be doing things like you said, hiking, or just going out and doing, I don't know how to explain it, but just going out and just doing more actual like man things, and not like this looks maxing nonsense. So yeah. Well, even just being like someone that's like a social, like if your main thing is like I'm gonna be this, like I'm on Kick 24/7 live streaming everything, even that's kind of like what are you doing? It's like it's like fame for the sake of fame. Like even that's kind of like a feminine type of deal, where you're not famous for actually accomplishing something, but you're just famous for just looking good and just being famous. That's also, I think, in my opinion, like a feminine type of deal.
So, Dr. Moeller, this is one thing I want to ask you, though, is because we see this gray area. It's like thin. I do online debates all the time. Vic covers debates that I do. And, I look at his podcast. We're online all the time. We see either two things. There's no in between. It's really weird right now, this dichotomy. I'll see either the person behind the keyboard, they don't give a damn about how they look. They don't care about eating Cheetos off of mom's basement and all this. They're online trying to get their likes up and everything else. And then we see the stark opposite of the person that's looks maxing. They got their skincare routine. We had somebody last week that was mirroring. He was such a replica of the American Psycho person from Christian Bale. If you look at the last one, he looked exactly like this guy. But it's like the guy from the movie, it was looks maxing. He had a skincare routine. He cared about the face mask and all this. And literally, like, that's hyperbole. And that's, for some reason, that movie depicted what young men are doing these days without the business portfolio or any of the stuff, or without the body count. He had a different kind of body count, by the way, too. But if we think about this, it's almost like there's no in between. There's not a guy with a balance of like, okay, I do care about what I look like as far as modesty, but I also want to be healthy. How come there's it's almost like Vapius. We don't see this guy. We either see the extreme geek who doesn't care about his gut, who doesn't care about his gut flora or his gut health, his dietary intake, his nutrition, how he treats himself, the plastics going in his body. This is down what you're talking about. Or we have the extreme where it's like, we care about how we look. We don't care about the plastics as long as the aesthetics look good. How come this middle class, and I'm just going to call it the middle class, is disappearing?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we would probably all lean on our theology in those situations because, right, you have Gnostics who are like, we don't need this body, right? So they're just so caught up in the mind. But most people in modernity are all objective materialists, right? So they honestly don't even value the mind. They don't even value the soul. They don't even, most of them don't even think the soul exists. I mean, I don't know, what a lot of their theology is, but what is being played out in real time. And I see this with patients, right? Patients, like Seraphim was saying, they look at testosterone as a number. I'm like, dude, you have androgen receptor sensitivity. I talk about testosterone like horsepower. Dude, you might be at 300 and be fine. If you feel good, why would you go on gear? Like, you're fine there. You feel good. Don't mess with it. But then I have guys who are 600 or 700. Like, dude, I'm depressed. I have ED. Like, oh, wow, you had brain injury, da. So the nuance is just all pretty much lost on all of us. Honestly, I think. And we either kind of live in this objective materialistic world, or we go straight into the Gnostic where everything's all about, what do I know? Right. And everyone, men do have a tendency to just try and play what their strong hand is. Right. If you're good looking, I'm just going to put all my weight into that and win. right? If I'm smart, I'm going to place all my weight. And that's not a Christian perspective, right? We have a different end goal. Our meta narrative is unifying with Christ. And so therefore all of these things are important. I work out, my brain is way better, right? If I haven't worked out for 3 days and I'm talking to a patient, my brain is not working. Like, it's funny because like you guys have done, I've really peeled back the last couple of years, not as much out of, I could say, I'm less egotistical. I have less time. And I've gotten to the point where you guys, like, dude, I was 5 days a week. I didn't take more than 2 weeks off. From the time I hit 16, I got my license. There was no time I took weeks to eat, like, beside kidney stones, I was in the gym, and that's not good. But then I'm like, hey, let's like relax this a little bit, to the point of overcorrecting. I'm like, dude, I haven't been to the gym in 3 days and I can tell my brain isn't working as well. Right. So in modernity, dude, we just have this, like I said, we're just swimming in this culture that most people don't even know, where they're like, they come to me, oh, my testosterone is 600. I know 1,000's better. Let's make it more. Right. Like, that's not, where are you at in your life? How old are you? How's your libido? How's your energy? Then, right. But that's the same thing with look. Like, I need to become better looking. It's like by fixing my earlobes and my nose. Like, where's your end game? I think is the issue, that most people don't stop and look. And I think all of us did that, right? When you come to the church, you go, my life's for Christ. How does this play into getting me closer to God? And that's the same thing with dating, right? Like, I'm only going to date a woman, like, she's my salvation buddy. And if this is, look, I get to, she will probably challenge me in ways. Hopefully she'll get me to bed earlier. She'll complain about some things that I need to work on, right? That's different than, hey, this is a hedonistic person that just makes me happy, right? And I think we're all probably, we're in those places now, that all these things, how are they bringing us closer to Christ? And if you don't have that meta narrative, I don't know how you get here. And I don't know how they just don't keep drifting in one direction. So it's, I'd say it's strange to us now being at our vantage point, right? And that's honestly why it's up to hopefully us to be a light, or at least shine them to people who are the lights, not me, the saints. But that they don't know that, right? I didn't know that at 21. I wish, like Seraphim had said, dude, if I had read Nihilism by Seraphim Rose at 20, I'm curious to see what I'd have become, because I did the New Age stuff, I did all those things. So they're just swimming in it. And that's hopefully why, as they come to the church, or if they're listening to podcasts like this, they can start to like, dude, what is the purpose of my life? It's to see Christ. Like, that should be number one. These are tools to get there.
Yeah, I think the optics are important. Yeah.
Yeah, to touch on that too, I full on agree that if you're not intentionally seeking Christ, you're not in the church, then it's to not find that balance and that kind of middle path. You're going to fall in one direction. The easy answer I can give now is, we had our magazines. We had Jay Cutler or Phil Heath or Kai Green or whoever you looked at, Kevin Levrone. Those were kind of our heroes back then. What every priest says is so accurate, that if you just read Lives of the Saints, our heroes of the faith, it truly will lock you in. I mean, even though most of the saints we read, not all of them, but most of them are monastic, there's so much takeaway for even us living in the world. And those of us that have, this proclivity to kind of go all in with something, if you read Lives of the Saints, this can truly start setting you on the path. I talked to a young man a couple weeks ago. He's 17 years old, and he is just eating this up, reading Lives of the Saints. And it is amazing to see how God is working through his life. And that's kind of the whole thing I was touching on earlier, that when we are actually doing this, we're actually intentionally seeking Christ, then it all kind of works out anyway. It's going to be, still a passion we have to work against, not just falling into sloth or falling into pride, but if we are very intentionally seeking Christ, then we are going to be pushing back against those anyway. And the whatever God has for us, whether that's creating some big business, whether that is, a job where you're serving people just in your hometown, whatever that looks like, you will be doing so in a way that is very spiritually edifying, that is not only helping your own sanctification, but it's also helping the sanctification around of those around you. The only way to really process this and see this, just like what we all see with social media or these magazines, we're seeing these images of what we potentially could want from a very humanistic, materialistic, prideful level. Whereas if we read Lives of the Saints, we can very almost visually see, okay, this is what it looks like to have sanctification, to be achieving theosis. And you know, it's been very, very motivating and inspiring to me. You know, I know it is for many other people. It's just, once again, how are you going to tell this to, or how are you going to get someone that's outside of the church, outside of already seeking Christ to you know, kind of come to that themselves? It's kind of one of those things of, you know, God is going to have to, you know, God is going to meet, you know, those people where they're at. I was at the sickest point physically and when I was 260 pounds in my last off season. And that ultimately is what brought me on my knees before Christ. So it's one of those things of, you know, it's, you know, I think some people are going to go too far to the right, too far to the left, and that might be what brings them into the, you know, ultimately into seeking Christ.
Glory to God.
Amen. Yeah, and I mean, you read, like you're saying, like it's so funny. I don't know about you guys. I was born and raised Roman Catholic, and going to the New Age and learning about monks, and then you start reading about you're like, dude, these guys, like Saint Joseph the Hesychast, I read his letters, and he's like, fight the demons. The fornication demon came for me, and I slayed him. And I was like, dang, dude, like that's what and that's why you start to realize, like, God does put these things on our heart for a reason, right? Like, don't, like, the devil takes it and turns it upside down. But like, to be disciplined, to be aggressive, and certain, you should hate sin and you need to attack it, and you do your prostrations, and the passion comes and you go to your prayer corner. I don't do that, but I hear good, you know, saints do that, you know, and you fight. Like, we have that masculine will, and you can just see how it just gets distorted, right? Oh, I'm going to do it, put it in bodybuilding. But dude, you're going to be, it's tough in the beginning, but you do start to see this is where that needs to go eventually. When you read, like Seraphim saying, some of the lives of the saints, and you know, that's a big thing for young guys out there. Like, go find some saints. Like, there's different saints for different people. Like, glory to God for that. And they'll inspire you, and you'll see how awesome and how just, dude, those guys, I don't know if I can say that, they're savages, you know, like just living off of nothing, living off of bread, and just, you know, 1,000 prostrations. St. Joseph's like, I had just pus coming out of all my ulcers for weeks, and I prayed for death, but the Lord wouldn't give it to me. Like, dang, that sounds a lot like the guy that's like, I'm deadlifting, like, you know, 10 sets of 10. You're like, dude, savage. You know what I mean? And God gives us that to give to him, right? He gives it us, so we give it back because it's all his anyways. And when it's properly aligned, it can do a lot of good. And if not, you know, I think the other thing a lot of young guys don't get is that you do have also the propensity to cause a lot of damage. You know, I caused a lot of damage in my 20s to the people around me because of that VainGlory. Like, you want to chat? We haven't chatted much about that. You know, we've chatted about what it does to us, but dude, look at what that does. And like, I contributed to that, right? I contributed. I posted pictures, and some kid goes, oh, if I want to, you know, I want to compete, I got to be like him. And then, you know, then they get involved, and that big negative feedback loop. So the way you get out is by not participating, but you know, the world hated Christ, and you'll be hated too. That's the hard part. And it's hard. It's so hard. It's harder than anything else, dude. Like, people think you're hard. Like, read the life of St. Joseph. He's hard. You're not hard, dude. You are on trend, and you're bone smashing so you can make more money, you know? Sorry.
It's crazy. We'll compare things to that. It's like, it's not even rational at all.
Close.
But we're fed this lie, and we buy this lie all the time. And then we're also, like, because I know that, you know, when we fast, it's we're not eating, right? But then there's the time that we eat. Well, we don't just digest our food. We eat everything and ingest everything through our eyes, our ears, image. And when we talk about the superficial landscape that we have, we're scrolling, we're automatically having to use blue light protectors because we're shielding ourselves from already we're being inundated with everything else, gym culture, advertisements. It's in the air we breathe, the water we drink, and feminism and this indoctrination. And men are only trying to counter this because they don't see any other refuge. I didn't discover orthodoxy till later on when I was watching the whatever podcast and Andrew was on there, and he mentioned maybe you should just check out a pair sometime. And I was like, what the hell is orthodoxy? Because like you, Dr. Moeller, I came out of being a grandmaster in right hand Reiki, a breathwork instructor in Sedona, leading a spiritual camp. I was just like, this is the most feminine shit I could have ever done. Looking back at this, and it's like, so me and Seraphim looking back on the other side, I was so retarded.
Yeah.
I will
I
say
still
that
am.
I'm
Pray
dumb
for me.
and retarded. And I think about this and I'm like, oh, the biggest worthless sinner, whatever. But it's like, we think about this and it's like, what would you both say to men out there who do want to look like you do, Seraphim, and want to follow this path and are treading down this road? And you too, Dr. Moeller, who do want to say, well, I want to skip all these steps. I want it right now. What would you tell these men that are walking down this path and they are seeking vainglory, knowing that we were contributors to this? What would we do to kind of offset this in society? Mainly, what is the solution here?
Sarah?
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
they-
where for me
he
on
said
my
it.
on my end, you know, this is where one, I had to do this for myself to not feed pride. But then two, also, you know, helping others, either A, not feeding women's lust or gay men's lust, and then B, also the example of it. I had to completely come at my content from a completely, you know, different angle. I don't, you know, I could very easily get a ton of engagement if I posted my typical from back in the day shirtless lifting thing, and I can't do it for myself, what it would feed on a pride level, and why would I be doing that anyway? And then B, the example I'm setting. And so, you know, I'm glad to see that now we you know, with this kind of boom of orthodoxy, we're seeing a lot more priests. We're now seeing laymen that are showing an example of what it means to be someone who is seeking Christ and working, you know, fitness and working out into that, but not that being the goal in itself. So I think a big part is honestly just being a good example of what it means to you know, be a person in this world very into Christ. This is where we see such beautiful accounts of these you know, these Orthodox mothers now, where they're showing their days of, you know, how they are, you know, they're faithfully, you know, showing their life and putting up fasting recipes and things like that. It's kind of the same thing. I think we just need better examples of what, you know, we have these examples of saints of, you know, what it looks like to be a monastic. And I think we need, you know, we just need more examples of, you know, what does it mean to actually be a Orthodox Christian, very intentionally seeking Christ, but living in the world, having a job, having a family, and then also, you know, working fitness in. And so what I would say is, wanting to look like me, I mean, I'm nothing to look at now. I mean, I don't have a six pack. I don't, you know, I lift maybe 3-4 times a week, and I run three-ish times a week. And that's not even a hard rule. It's more of, you know, something I frankly do for just discipline and health now. But, you know, I would encourage someone not to try to emulate what I did back in the day, and look at, you know, hopefully, you know, once again, it's so hard to say. If someone's not already very intentionally seeking Christ, it's very hard to, you know,
Yeah.
this is those things. If once they start seeking Christ, then just keep your eyes focused on Christ and keep very intentionally seeking. And it, you know, it truly does get better. The spiritual warfare gets more intense. I mean, that never gets easier. The cross, you know, I compare, you know, the beautiful thing is so much of the spiritual life is a direct comparison to working out. You know, I talk about the bodybuilding metaphor all the time that, you know, as we're getting stronger in the gym, we are continually putting ourselves under heavier weight to gain strength, gain muscle, but we're always kind of taking it to failure with the weight we can lift. It's always kind of the same thing in the spiritual walk too, that we're always kind of at the peak level at, but we're getting stronger so we can handle maybe a heavier cross in that time, which then feeds more faith and trust in God. It feeds more love for God, but at the same time, the cross or the spiritual warfare, the attacks, whatever it is, also, a lot of times get more intense, in themselves. There's like an intensifying of the weight of the cross we bear, the spiritual attacks, but then there's also on the other side of it, there's a deepening of the grace of God and the love we have for God and the love we have for others. And it's one of those things that, just like us taking check-in pictures and checking ourselves, is our plan working? Are we actually losing weight, or are we actually gaining muscle? If we weren't doing that, if we after 6 months saw no change, we would go back to the drawing board. It's the same thing within the spiritual walk. We should be seeing a transformation happening, that we are having more love for God, we're having more love for others. And there's that is a beautiful thing too about having lifting as a somewhat of a staple in your life, is there is so many direct comparisons to how it also looks in the spiritual life. But what I can tell you is that the spiritual walk and seeking God is just like, I believe it was Dr. Michael that said it, way more, I don't know if challenging is the right word. It is way more intense than just going in the gym trying to put on muscle. St. Joseph the Hesychast is a perfect example of this, but he makes anything we do in this world look like nothing. So it's like, it's one of those things too, of like, if you are one of these like hardcore that wants to like, really put yourself to a challenge, well, this is the greatest challenge. This is it. So and it's so beautiful what happens and what comes out of this, and the grace of God that comes through it. It's just at the same time, it comes with a heavy sure.
Yeah, I think he said that this is your mission if you choose to accept it, right? To challenge the young man. Like,
Kinda
this is
like that,
it.
yeah.
It's for all the marbles, man. If you really want to, you can look at these guys who are able to do extravagant things through the grace of God, or you can choose the world. And you got to check yourself before you wreck yourself. And I wrecked myself several times, dude. For me, going into the new age after a couple ayahuasca spills, I'm like, dude, there's nothing here. It's empty. I think that, like Seraphim was saying earlier, sometimes you just got to go down the road until you see that it's empty, that there's nothing there, that it's a brick wall, but you come back around and you come to Christ, and then you're going to find everything that you were ever looking for. And sometimes it just takes you a little bit longer, So there's a reason you have that drive. There's a reason God made you a man. There's a reason you have those those things that were placed in you because of your human nature, and they should be used properly. And just know that the devil is way smarter than you. You'll never defeat him. You hold on to Christ, your brothers, you go to your priest, you go to church, and just realize that he's always deceiving you. One little pitch I wanted, my priest, the prayer rope versus the scroll. What are you doing when you're scrolling? Like, it's literally like, as you come in, you're like, you look at everything and you're like, it's so upside down. You know what I mean? But there's hope in Christ. You don't ever get despondent. That's another way the devil gets you. So pick up your cross, be a man, and get at it and save yourself and those people around you, because we're all depending on each other, right? Your guys' story motivates me. You guys are going to go out and chat with more people. We're all in this together. There's no way, right? The only thing you can do alone is be damned, so our salvations are intertwined. So we're depending on each other, and don't think that you don't matter. Don't think you can't have a huge impact, and realize that when you get in the right place at the right time, you let God do his thing. Miraculous things can happen. So that's proof in the lives of the saints.
I agree. And many men do report that improving their looks open doors. Like this is what people will tell you. They'll say, since I've been looks maxing, since I've been mewing, since I've been taking peptides and doing everything meticulously, they've stated that, like, and I get told this all the time, like it's open doors in dating, confidence, respect. And they're not really seeing the underlying things that they're falling prey to that Seraphim points to. Others report deeper emptiness. Now, this happens all the time because when I talk to these same individuals, like 6 months later, they're like, bro, and I'll ask them, I'll do a check-in. Hey, where you at, man? Like if I'll see them at the gym or somewhere else. Yeah, man, things aren't going. Well, I thought the looks maxing was going good for you and it's empty. So what does this suggest about the limits of aesthetics as far as the source of meaning to you guys?
Well, if I can say, if that is what you're using to open doors, is opening the wrong doors.
Yeah.
You're gonna meet the wrong woman. That then if you then you do end up finding Christ. Is that woman going to follow you to Christ? If the door opens you up to a certain job or something like that? Once again, these are opening the wrong doors. It's just, once again, this is such a hard thing to get through people's heads that are in it. I could not have been told anything I'm saying or any of y'all's podcast is. There's none of this. I'm maybe deep in my soul I would have felt the truth to it, but I was too far deep that I couldn't have I wouldn't have responded to it. So it's one of those things of
Well, in the don't trust. I think it goes both ways. Don't trust the wrong things for the right reasons, or don't trust the right things for the wrong. Like either way, if you're having to be shifty about it, right? Like if you have to look max to get the interview, then maybe you don't need to be at that interview, man. ET has the one like your talent will take you places your character can't keep you. There's some doors you don't want opened, right? You should be praying. My priest tells me this all the time, like pray for the things that you didn't have happen, right? Like the thing that you wanted that God kept from you because you weren't ready for it, or it would have blew up in your face. Right. That's another thing we don't really think about. And we are so, myself included. So I grew up in the Midwest. I'm like, dude, small story. I wanted to be an actor. Like first I wanted to be a professional athlete, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go to LA and go to med school. That's why I went to San Diego to med school. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to go up to LA and be an actor. And I get out of med school. I get my degree. I moved to West Hollywood. And I have my 6-figure salary. And I'm like, dude, I made it. Like now this is exactly what I want. And I was miserable. And I remember that brought me and it was literally my transition when I was coming back into Christ. And I woke up every morning and I said, God, I'm an idiot. I got exactly what I wanted and I am miserable. Can you please get me out of here? I don't even know what to ask for because I now realize how dumb I am. So please get me out of here. So realize that as you're going through life, that God knows what you need. He really does. And I know in myself that I'm too arrogant. I think I know what I want and need, but realize that he is always protecting you. I think most Orthodox realize that. Like as I come into the church, I can realize how many times God's grace has shielded me. And every once in a while, God can take that grace away. You're like, dude, I'm out here running naked. Like these demons will shred you. And that's the hard part is people rely on the positive. Oh, I'm making more money. I'm getting more popular. I'm like, dude, that's exactly what the devil wants, dude. He's leading you to your demise, right? And the hard part is then, like Seraphim saying, you got to pull back and say, all right, but dude, it's so much harder. The further you go, the devil has you deeper and deeper and deeper. And realize that it's going to be tough to pull out of that. And we've all went through it. And all the saints will tell you, like St. Mary of Egypt, like we have these examples of people that the devil had them in the grips, and just know you're never too far from God, but realize that, you don't know you don't know what's good for you. All right. So when you're 19, and especially when look at us, man, I remember being 20. I'm like, oh, these stupid boomers, like I need to go to Hollywood and become an actor. What an idiot, Oh
yeah. So I heard something from Father Moses the other day, and he was talking about how the devil will lie to you. Like Satan will lie to you, but it'll be like one lie out of 9 truths. Like he'll tell you like a bunch of truths and he'll be like, see that person, you can't trust them. And then it's like, yeah, see, the six pack is what got the chick. And then it's like, see, I told you your work ethic would pay off. Now you got the job. And then the last thing he'll tell you is like, you can't trust anybody. So you need to abandon everybody. And it's like, that would be the lie. So it's like, it's almost like I can understand that there are what they call red pill truths. Like, yeah, if you look better, you're going to get more attention, things like this. But you see what I'm leaning into? Like, these are the things that could be true in actual reality with as far as materialism, society, and stuff like that. But as far as the deeper thing, this goes to what you're talking about, Dr. Moeller, is like opening doors that are wrong, because it's like, yeah, that may be the truth, but this is the thing that's going to end you and wreck you so bad. It's like, now you're losing your house. You're caught up in a bad divorce. It's like, yeah, that's not what she wanted. That's what she said she wanted. And it's like, that's what you're buying. And it's like, like I said, we can't get a receipt for all these years that we put into this that we can't get back. And my message is trying to have men avoid the same path that I walked down, and maybe even Seraphim walked down path. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's in the Our Father, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Put in the chat. Thy will be done.
Yeah, and God will work everything out for good. I mean,
Romans 8:28. It's my birthday.
It's, now, Moses, you have, because of your background, you now are going to be able to speak to men, in different types of men, that might have not listened to someone else. So, God does work everything out for good. So it's one of those things of just, we should just be seeking Christ as much as we can, and then hopefully the viewers here, they do the same, and that's where God's will ends up, happening. We end up over time in humility, we grow in repentance. It becomes something that this is just this is a transfer. We can all attest to this. That how we even thought years ago, we don't even think the same way. We don't have the same thoughts. It's a beautiful transformation that happens, and the main thing is just staying so centered on Christ. And I think it's hard to hear that in the I mean to be centered on Christ. And so I think a good takeaway that we hear people like Father Moses or Father Josiah Trenum, or make sure you're starting the day with God, starting the day with your prayer rule, and just as much as you can, being intentional throughout the day. I'm so inspired when I hear men talk about that when they're in the gym in between sessions, the Jesus prayer, or people will make sure that they're only listening to Orthodox chants while they're working out. These are inspiring things that can help at least throughout our day bring us back. But it's one of those things that God will work everything out for good. So no matter where you're at right now, just like what Dr. Moeller said, you're not far gone. And, like I said, Moses, like you now, especially coming from being an IFBB pro, kind of at the peak of your game, all of this, and, through you seeking Christ, you're now giving this to God. And I'm so excited to see what comes from this.
I mean, it's going to be a difficult road. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, I'm barely just realizing that I've kind of poured everything in. It's a very expensive sport. Not only is it very expensive, but you start realizing questions, and this is going to kind of hit at the heart of something. I don't mean to like get personal here, but when I think about this, it's like, and this is where I'm bringing both of you. This is, I thank Christ that I have both of you. You guys are the perfect people to talk about this. The reason why is because this point brings both of you in on this. When I think about this, it's like, I have to be on TRT for the rest of my life, possibly to some degree. And I've always thought about this, but it's like, but I was off TRT, right? But then we think about things down the road. And this is what I want young men to think about, is like fertility. I want, a future with a wife and a baby and stuff. And it's like, dang, now I don't want to be in a position where I have to keep trying for a baby and a family and stuff. We are called to have children and multiply, because I do believe that we are going to outproduce atheists at the rate that they're deleting babies. Christians are going to outproduce them, but it's like, I have to do my part in this. And it's like, I want people to realize that, if you go down this road, you could very well wreck that future. And it's like, you're going to think, I want progeny, I want a lineage, and I want a bloodline. But society and modernity and this materialism agenda has slaughtered my bloodline. I no longer have to, like, it's funny that Conan the Barbarian was the guy that defended bloodlines and prevented them from being slaughtered. But merely looking like him and having the world to look like him is in fact slaughtering your bloodline. How paradoxical is that? that's the point that I want to bring home that both of you guys can relate to some degree, because you, I've heard you talked about, we're trying again for like the, umpteenth time, Seraphim. And then I've heard you talk about this, Mulder, talk about reproductive health and fertility and keeping that alive in men. And these are really important things. But I think right now in youth, if we're out there and dating, that's the end goal. And if this is tied to the end goal, we don't realize how much this materialism and vanity and vainglory, if we buy this, we're getting robbed in the long run. That's the point that I want to address. And maybe you guys can speak on this as well, too.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I just don't ever lose hope. There's ACG and there's BCTs. We'll get you back online. I honestly to give guys a little bit of hope, and I'd like to hear from you guys, at least from TRT. Anabolics, I think, is another area. I have never seen a guy who knew to be fertile get on TRT and become permanently infertile. Like PCT has always worked. I've not seen it. Baylor studies. It's not great. And you're definitely 90% of the time when you're on testosterone or most anabolics, you will be infertile. I would not recommend ever trying to reproduce, especially on anabolics, because we do not know what that does. Right. But to give you guys a little bit of hope as far as TRT, I've had guys on TRT for 20, 30 years come off and they get their fertility back. It's not ideal. Right. At the same time, you have to, all of these things, like you have to find a balance, right? And I think that's the issue when you look at Arnold and you look, because honestly, I think Arnold, again, I think he had like 5 or 6 kids, same thing with Stallone, right? So I don't know if he was running ACG, why he was doing things, but if you are juicing up to, get masculine and get girls, and it's like, but then you can't reproduce, like again, this is just a meta narrative thing. It's like, what's the point? And when you start figuring that the point is more important than the end goal, right? I just want to look big. And it's like, well, if you can't have, and how many bodybuilders spend their whole lives, I don't know how to say that nicely and not to make a blanket statement, but it's vanity. And they date the girl who, same thing, that half those girls can't reproduce because of their cycle, right? They're on oxyandrolone, whatever they've been on, their fertility. And, they don't really realize that because of, like we said, the culture has said, hey, this is what you need to go and do. And then you have to work backwards. Right. And, nothing's impossible with God. He uses it all for good. So don't lose hope, but realize that every decision and this isn't even just for TRT. This is for any medication, whether it's an SSRI or it's a blood pressure medication. Like there are risks and benefits to everything. Like, cool, you're look maxing and it's going to give you X, Y, and Z. What's the drawback? I mean, honestly, you can go septic from any peptide injection that you're getting from China, right? So, and your body's a temple. Your God has given you this body to take care of and to honor him. And you should think about that in everything that you do. And ultimately, yes, we're called to be fruitful and multiply. So it's like you do all the look maxing and TRT in the world, but you can't reproduce. What's the point? So
I do want to play something real quick.
I have I have a very kind of mixed perspective on this. So I've spoken to quite a few priests now on TRT specifically, since that was I was dealing with, and I had one priest that was kind of all for it and said that with everything going on with the hormone disruptors, everything, this is definitely just part of our world now, and if it can help you serve your family better or serve God better. And then every other priest I talked to was pretty adamantly against it. And one thing that hearing from multiple priests, and so one thing that I came back to is one thing that we have to make the distinction. We're not monastics. We are lay people. But at the same time, with all these monks, I guarantee you, with how ascetically they were fasting, their test was probably always bottom. They were never at all ever caring about their test levels. And so it's one of those things of, I very much got to the point where I could see on paper a test level that was lower than what I would consider ideal. And then I tested it through multiple PCTs. Okay, now I'm gonna raise my test up to maybe 1100, and then I'm gonna try lowest dose. And I was very, very in tune during this entire time of how good did I feel. And I personally, and once again, I'm not putting this experience on anyone else. I personally did not feel really any benefit other than maybe I didn't get as tired later in the day, being on versus being off. After the crash, there was a crash through the, outside of that, I once again, this is such a personal decision. I can't say with the fertility thing, this is
Right.
something absolutely to think about because, you know, just like what Dr. Mueller said, I personally as well have not seen someone not be able to reproduce if they had decent fertility prior to going on. The catch, though, is I have seen the fertility recovery process be quite long for many people. For some
Yep.
people, it's like they can drop the TRT and go on HCG, and then it's just, you know, it comes right out. For other men, I've known the process to take years. So one of those things of, you know, to be very, 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 you know, kind of cautious with. I'm not the one to seek out for this. You know, Dr. Mueller is much more qualified with any of this. And another, it would be, you know, going with someone like Dr. Mueller and then talking to your spiritual father to work out all of these questions. These are very, very, anything like this is very much something that needs to be in the open with your spiritual father and not you just going off on your own and cowboying it, because there are spiritual implications to a lot of what we do, even outside of hormone use and all of this, just us living in the world now. It's just like what we talked about earlier of like going into certain gym environments even has a spate that I think a lot of us aren't even giving credit for. And so it's one thing to just be, you know, have such a open and deep relationship with your spiritual father. We see this within monastics that Saint Joseph had the monks that had him as their elder. Every night they would have to come do confession and even confess their thoughts. And that is, the more we speak to our elders, our spiritual fathers about, you know, what we're struggling with, what we're dealing with, even our thoughts. This is where, you know, they can really help guide you into where maybe TRT is the right decision for you. Maybe that, you know, the maybe your low testosterone, your hormone status is preventing a good health outcome. And maybe you'll be able to serve your family. Maybe you'll be able to be more ascetic or whatever it means for you, you know, with it. At the same time, you know, for me personally, I've had counsel from my spiritual father, and now two, by the way, that strongly against it. And I know for me personally, I can't do it just because I know what I would be doing it for. And I know
Right.
what it would need. So once again, this is just, these are very, very weighted things. And it's just like what we said back in the day, TRT was like, you would see an ad of a man that was like 60 years old with a six pack and promoting like therapy, and it was like new and flashy, but even then it was like very few people were doing it. Now you have 16-year-olds that are getting on tests and saying they need it because of hormone disruptors in the environment and all of that, and it's like, no, you should absolutely be trying to
Crazy.
maximize
I
your
need to
own
be on trend.
So crazy. I do want to play a quick video real quick. It'll be very short, and I'm pretty sure both of you guys would agree with this and relate to this, as well as you, Vic, too. I don't know why it's not playing. Here we go. Try this again. Come on, Father.
Uh-oh.
All right. Anyways, he was talking about vanity. That's what he's talking about. I was hoping that it would play, but I guess
Dang.
it's not going to play. But he was talking about being careful with vanity. But anyways, that kind of failed. So I think that the
No.
spiritual fathers that we do have talk about vanity, and VainGlory in the West has taken over. We've seen guys like Father Moses talk about this, how guys are looks maxing. He's did a whole video about this. Father Josiah Trenham has talked about this. Cool Vic has even talked about the mannerisms of guys being extremely feminine. They're overreactive. They're choosing liberalism, even like the Brian Shapiro's of the world, and things like this being overreactive. I think right now in society, we're up against an onslaught like none other. Like literally, we're having a political and a social crusade that's happening right now. Long before we get to like swords and boots on the ground and pew pews and all this other stuff, this crusade is going to happen in both the political arena and it's going to happen in the social arena, i.e., your gyms of people trying to seek health and everywhere else. I think right now is one of the craziest times in the West. In the West, I can see. I don't want to be blackpilling here, but I can see the active fall happening right now as we have few men in the trenches, such as Dr. Moeller here, Seraphim. Cool Vic is in the fight. I'm in the fight. I think we need more men like us on the panel right now, railing and pushing back against this, but offering alternative routes that do point to Christ, do point to suffering and fasting and reading the lives of the saints, things like this, and not really looking to social media to become the new father, because we have a fatherless epidemic that's happening as women are initiating the most divorces at a rate of 72%. And the best way that we can fight against this is becoming the very examples that I'm leaning into becoming, such as Seraphim here, who I've studied his content. And this guy, wow, it's almost like video after video. I just get addicted when I watch the next video. And it's like I'm watching a muscular Duck Dynasty guy talk about like enjoying the weather, getting back to the roots and enjoying nature and everything that Christ created. And I think it's beautiful. Dr. Moeller's doing the very same thing with his content when he talks about this and people looking at a path to a naturopathic way to normalizing whatever the homeostasis is, where they can find this to where they can at least look to Christ from a healthy perspective, chemically, even mentally, when he talks about this on his podcast. And even Cool Vic telling people to lean away from the liberalism, which is increasing. I would say
soy maxing over there.
Yeah, soy maxing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are all helping out in the field and in the fight. We need more men in the trenches, I think, fighting.
Yeah, pray to God. Thank God. He'll send the soldiers, right? We just got to ask for them and we got to support them when they're around. So, yeah, support your guys out there, in the good fight, right? Obviously, right? I mean, I think a lot of us have already trying to be mirrors for people like Father Moses and Father Josiah, and examples that are in modernity. And we have our recent saints for a reason too, which, Father Turbo leans on that all the time. Read these recent saints. Like there's reasons, Elder Ephraim, he was 5 years ago. St. Joseph, he's 50, 60 years, but you can lean on them. We think about this thing or it's something old. It's like, dude, there are people, St. Paisius, these were around when we were alive. Glory to God. St. John Maximovich, go see him. If you haven't been to the cathedral in San Francisco, go see him, right? And there's something that lives on, right? And that's why we have the icons and we see this distortion of social media versus like, why has the church given us icons? Why has the church given us saints for a reason? In the lives of the saints, it's been, usurped by movies, right? Where we used to chat and learn about our history because we are in the church. And these people we are a continuation of them, God willing, as long as we stay in the ark. And we can lean on them. You can pray to them. They'll intervene in your life. I'm sure all of us can talk about how they've guided us and been there for us when we needed them. And instead, we do the Hollywood stars, right? Oh, let's look at Brad Pitt. Let's look at Arnold Schwarzenegger. And that doesn't mean that they might have some, impressive qualities, but we really just have to get back to supporting and being a mirror, right? Like I'm a baby. I've only been in here for 4 years. And I look at, what can I do is shine the light on the people who have fought the good fight. I'm trying. I fail every single day. This morning, I woke up and I went to my computer before I prayed. And it took me an hour and I did, stupid things. I got in my head. I got upset. I'm like, oh yeah, it's because I went over and did this first. So, look to the good example. Look to me. Look to there are much better examples out there, and that's our job, is to shine and let people know about those examples in a culture that's promoting a 20-year-old look maxer. Our job is to point them to St. John and to St. Joseph and those spiritual warriors who've gone before us. So,
I agree.
Couldn't agree more.
Go ahead.
I have one of my viewers sent in a super chat question for both of you guys. They wanted to know about creatine. He said, "What about creatine? I'm a power lifter, not a bodybuilder. The reason I never went the anabolic route is because I heard of the side effects."
Creatine isn't that bad. I don't think it's bad.
I think all of us are well equipped. 5-10 grams a day, or 5 grams is
Yeah,
a
you're
pretty
fine.
low. Most well researched. Well, I mean, there are some issues with DHT, and you need, the whole water thing. Yeah, you need water to create energy, right? So you're storing glycogen and ADP, which is an instant source of energy. Yeah, you'll have a little bit of water, but that's good. And the same thing, like people like, oh, I gained 5 pounds. Yeah, that's glycogen. You're going to be stronger, right? I think all of us can talk to that. And yeah, I think, there's more recent studies that actually have come out for creatine and its ability to help with people who have had lack of sleep, right? Because creatine is your instant source of energy. Like everything, though, caffeine, creatine, hopefully it's there to make your life better when it becomes something you're crutching on all the time. Yeah. Supplements are there for when you need to supplement and you're not able to do what you're needing to do. So, but I don't know if anyone has anything negative to say about creatine. It's one of the most well-researched. It's natural, right? You can just go eat more red meat too, not now because we're on the fast, but so
Yeah,
get a blessing from
I
spiritual
agree.
father.
I think as long as you're getting it from a reputable source, just because now there's so many supplements that are, not coming from a high quality. Maybe Dr. Moeller can speak on this more, but there's definitely quality supplements and non-quality supplements. So as long as from quality supplier that's well backed, then you're going to be fine.
Come on, sir. I'm going to go buy my creatine gummies off Amazon. Right? There's I think there's stats on that. Like 70% of those gummies are just gummies. Yeah. Look for good manufacturing practices. I think a lot of people are familiar. We use at my clinic Full Script. It's a pretty popular company that a lot of people use because they'll filter a lot of the products because they're not as regulated as pharmaceuticals, which I hope they never will be. But one of the benefits with pharmaceuticals is if something goes wrong, you have someone to sue, or if they're lying, they get in trouble. People literally can just buy whatever and put rice powder in there and sell it online. So be vigilant about where you're getting your supplements and anything you put in your body. I would, if you can, go find out where you get your beef. Go find out where you probably can't get your bananas in Idaho, but you get what I'm saying. Try and support local places. That's a whole other kind of tangent on life of we got to fix our communities, and we've all have been told to live in this silo of individualization. So, and the church tells us the opposite. So side rant there.
Yeah, with that, guys, I've got to spend some time with the wife before we hit the bed. This has been great pleasure of mine to be on with y'all. And Dr. Michael, I've been wanting to connect with you for a good minute. Moses, like I said, I am so excited to see where this journey leads. And I've gone through this process, specifically myself, and there was lots of challenges that came with it. Mentally, spiritually, physically too. So, if you've, never hesitate to reach out. And Vic, it was a pleasure being on with you and meeting you as well. So I appreciate y'all having me on.
I do want to say before you leave, Seraphim, I don't know where you're at, but I'll reach out to you. We should get a workout in sometime. And I think that, I'm not for a video or not for social media.
Post it on social media.
Because this is what, they might want to see this actually. But I think that fellowship is extremely important. Me reaching out to another, which is rare. We're like unicorns in the orthodoxy. You come to an IFBB Pro, we're like less than 2% of the global population, maybe even 1%. The amount of determination, the amount of effort, the amount of sacrifice it takes to even become a pro in bodybuilding is like 1 in a million. I looked it up. It was like 1 in 2 million or something crazy like that. So when it comes to this, I think that we should meet for a coffee hour and then go lift and go into this deep, dark, painful place and suffer a little bit together in fellowship as men. I look forward to that. Dr. Moeller, I look forward to meeting you in real life and catching up. Maybe even drink. I never drank before because of bodybuilding. So I stayed away from it because it's like a acidic and it's a poison to the body. It's always how I looked at it. But now that I have this new life and I've turned a new leaf and I'm walking away from bodybuilding, I think that I would share a brewski with Dr. Moeller. What say you?
Yeah, I'm about it. I'm a champagne drinker. I'm kind of weird. Coffee hour. If you come visit us in Boise, my priest, we would be upset if you didn't have a glass of wine with us. So
where do you go? Saint Seraphim?
Yeah, that's where
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah. That's we have a great love for Seraphim here. You know, he's a great saint, and I pray he continues to do wondrous things in your life, Moses and Vic. It's been an absolute pleasure. I pray that you keep me in your prayers, and this has been super fruitful, and be excited to do it again at some point.
Same. I pray that this is super fruitful. I hope that this has helped out and edify, the masses out there who see this, the people that do want to look to drugs and say, well, it's just going to be a little bit. Well, I'd say don't even do it at all. Straight far away from this. And Seraphim, I do mean it when I say I'm going to reach out. I do look forward to this workout session because I've never trained with another IFBB pro who happens to be in the body of Christ. It's wild to me. So it's like, this is like
Where,
the most
where are you
badass
at?
thing ever. What's that?
Where are you at?
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm at St.
Okay.
George. I don't care if I dox myself. They can, matter of fact, go to the parish if you want to dox. If I'm going to dox myself, you might as well go check out a parish service and check it out. But that's what I'm saying, though. I would visit all of you, including Cool Vic. I'll share a brewski with you, Cool Vic, sometime in the future. I do believe that this is a very close
awesome.
community that we are developing here. We are for men, for masculine men. And that could be another conversation for the future. What does masculinity look for the future of the church and Western civilization, things like this? There's so much that we could touch on, but I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of this. It has been a pleasure having you on, Seraphim. Tell the missus I said hi. I will keep you guys in my prayers, and also you, Dr. Muller, too. And Vic, man, my badass co-host here, once again, riding off into the sunset, slaying the topic social issues as we dissect everything as in terms of wokeness on the topic of culture awareness and uplifting men in the process of leaning towards Christ.
Amen.
Amen.
I appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
Sounds
nice
good.
meeting you guys. It's a pleasure.
All right, Seraphim. I'll talk to
All
you soon.
glory to God.
Glory to God.
Glory to God.
All right, Dr. Muller. I will talk to you soon.
Until next time, friends. God bless.
Sounds good. God
God
bless. Glory to
bless.
God. Yeah, man. That was a pretty edifying episode. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Man. These are
That was-
two men that I wanted to talk to for a long time. Seraphim's got a large ass following. It's not because of the following. It's because I never knew there was another IFBB pro in Orthodoxy. Like this is like we're extremely rare, but talking to him, it gives me so much clarification because if I'm exiting this and I'm leaving, it's like I've had questions about my identity, where I'm at. Like, am I going to be just relegated to doing a debater in the trade field after I graduate school? But this has been encompassing of everything I do because everywhere I go, I'm seeing my reflection and there's like this monster. But it's like, what's going to happen to that? Is he going to wither away like you were talking about? Is he going to go? But it's like, that's like becoming the least thing that I'm caring about. And it's like, where I'm at right now, I care about three things. Am I fighting? Am I walking towards Christ? Am I beating the shit out of liberals like I should do anyways and kicking the pants off these people? And then number three, it's like, where does my future lie in family, love life? All this is like to be continued. But Vic, this is great. Did you learn anything from the episode or get anything from this? Because I learned a lot myself.
Yeah, I actually learned a lot too. I was doing a lot of listening, thinking about a lot of things myself, and I was like realizing, man, there's like a lot of things that I got to think about now. It's like like going what you're saying. It's like, oh man, like it seems like you're at a crossroads, Marte. And yeah. How long have you been a bodybuilder for again?
I turned pro in 2013 at Miami Nationals. And when you go to Nationals, so let me tell you how it goes. When you go to Nationals, you have the Mr. Arizona. If you win the Arizona, if you win the LA, which I won the overall out there as a lightweight, when you win the overall, you're defeating super heavyweights. I was beating heavyweights, middleweight. Like that's not supposed to happen. And I don't know if that'll be replicated. And I was doing that naturally, whooping ass. But when I went to Miami to turn pro at Nationals, you have Mr. Minnesota there, Mr. Utah, Mr. California. You have to beat 49 people of the best in the nation of their state to turn pro. Like you're talking about, like this is insane. And I did this naturally, like damn near naturally, before I even touched anything because I had a massive fear of needles, which makes this more ultra rare. But I had to do drugs. I had to get on cycles and I had to do the steroids and everything else. And I was really reluctant to tell people what I was on because everything we were doing was illegal. And there's no way that you can compete as a pro athlete without doing anything, because even though I was decent and I was good, those people are just as good, only they're taking gear, which is like 5% more improvement on what you're already doing. So it's like I had this choice. Am I going to keep doing something and wrecking my body, or no? It's like a balancing act of like, I don't know. It's just crazy. So yeah, hopefully I
Yeah.
answered your question. I don't know, but yeah.
No, yeah, yeah. No, I just wanted to know because I want to know, like, oh, like, from not doing it no more. I just wanted to know, like, oh man, like this is like, if it's something like in your adult life, like I just didn't know if like bodybuilding was a part of your entire adult life or just a part of it. So I was trying to understand
Yeah.
like how
Massively,
impactful, yeah, how
bro.
impactful this was for you.
Vic, when I go out, like I didn't go to birthday parties, I didn't go to clubs. I had a modeling career where I was doing magazines, I was doing fitness stuff, and I was doing everything else in the industry. Everybody wants a piece of you. Everybody wants you for magazines. I got into another industry because I was chasing money and I was doing everything else. That was before I turned pro. But after I turned pro, I was signing autographs. I was at this booth and doing that. You are so in your damn head that all you're thinking about is like, I can't participate in regular society. That's all you are. So when it
Yeah,
came time for like family reunions, I was like, I can't eat the cake. I brought my own food because I don't trust the food that you make because it has barbecue sauce, which has 16 grams of sugar per teaspoon per serve. And it's like, you can't even enjoy life. I lived like, what is it, 25 years not enjoying life and not participating in regular society because I was thinking the next time I get on stage, I don't want to lose my contract. I want to be able to get a bigger contract and get paid more money and get on another contract. Besides, like, I want a contract with GNC or MHP that I signed the first time I turned pro or whatever this is. And when you're in the league, that's your whole identity. When I turned pro, there was only 3 pros in my state. And when I walked down the street, I got stopped at Walmart. Hey, can I take a picture with you? Janitors were dropped a mop or whatever. And it was like, when that's so ingrained in your identity and everybody knows about you. I have 4 gyms here in Arizona where I have a big ass poster in my wall on the wall. When you walk into that gym and the gym owner knows me, he's like, hey, Marte, what's up, man? And you walk in and you see a big ass idol of yourself. It's very different because now I have to adjust to not only like being a normie, which I don't think will happen because I'm always going to lift and train heavy. Well, it's like, who am I, Vic? Like, if I'm not
yeah,
that person that's on the posters of these walls that's getting stopped, it's like, what do I say? I'm not that person anymore. Don't talk to me anymore. I can't shun this. So it's like, there's going to be a
yeah.
massive conflict that I'm going to run into with this, to be honest with you. So pray for
Yeah,
me.
man, I get it. Yeah, dude, yeah, man. I will, man. No, for sure, dude. Well, hey, man, I'm looking forward to see where you go from here, man. And I will be praying for you, and I wish you nothing but the best. Because like I said, this sounds like it's a big crossroads for you.
Yeah, it's tough because think about wrestlers. Like, mind you, the one that we talked about, we're probably going to have him on a podcast pretty soon. In the
Yeah,
future. I don't want to say his name because I like keeping surprises. But that's the thing, though, is like when those wrestlers stop doing what they're doing, and it's almost like I saw him on an interview, and he turned it on. I was like, that can't be real. Like, this is just a magnified persona that this guy puts on,
yeah,
and like, I'll just say his first name's Brian. You know who I'm talking about.
yeah.
So,
I know you're talking. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So
Yeah,
when I saw Brian, I was like, I can't believe this is really his personality. So it's like when he switches back to regular life and he's no longer a wrestler, is he? How does he not be that person? It's like when it comes to bodybuilding and pro sports, like I had to rip up the contract, call this company and be like, I'm sorry, you guys, I'm dropping myself. Right. And I had to call the league and be like, I'm not competing this year. I'm pulling out of the new. And it's like, luckily I didn't sign the contract because when you break the contract, they fine you $4,000. Like, it's like when they
oh
send you the
shit.
contract and you sign it. So if you're late, the athlete's fee is like for being late is $2,000 and all this. It's like serious when you get in the league. But when I think about this, it's like, it's going to be really weird not eating every 3 hours and not stuffing my face with greens, chicken, or whatever. I don't know, when do I eat now because I've been doing this for 25 years. Do I eat the pizza and just think whenever I get hungry, I'm just going to eat? This is going to be a really weird transition into just being a regular eater. Even I don't even know how to explain it.
Well, on top of that too, I mean, now maybe you'll be able to actually maybe enjoy like what you're eating, because before it sounded like
Yeah.
you ate because that's what you needed, you needed to eat. And at the time, now it seems like you might actually be able to enjoy it. So that'll be a change too.
Yeah, it wasn't, and that's the thing though, is like, this is the thought process is like, I had an extremist mindset when I got into the sport. And I want you to picture this saying, the person who diets the hardest and suffers the most without actually dying does better than the rest. That's a really extreme way to think about this. I've lived my life like this for 25 plus years. And this was in college sports, this transition into bodybuilding where I had to be the best. I wanted my body fat composition to be so low that my organs weren't cushioned by any ounce of fat. Like this is how I stepped into DEXA scan, and like I had a doctor look at this and he was like, bro, you're either on the verge of going to a hospital or whatever. Like I've heard about people pissing blood. I've heard about all this shit, but I was like, I'll kill myself to kill other people that I'm competing against. And when you're coming from this mentality, from doing this at this level, and then just being like, I'm eating a pizza and enjoying this, this is really good. And I have to just think about this food as like, instead of putting it in my mouth, what is this going to do for my body? I have to turn that off and not think about this and just actually enjoy it. It's going to be really weird to try to turn from being a machine into like a human, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can imagine, man. Like I said, man, I'm going to be praying for you, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It'll take time, man. But I'm being honest and transparent about this because what Seraphim was talking about is real. Like him having to do this transition and being conflicted and all that, like that has been my identity. Like I said, I have a box of magazines that I was in. I'm on post, all this other stuff. I have to shun that. I have to turn that away because all that does is become like self idolatry. Just me even being
Yeah.
talking about it right now, I feel like shit talking about it because I feel like I'm glorifying it more. Oh, you have to bring it up, Barte. It's like, no, I'm saying that because it's like I'm battling this still with the conflicted space of being like, that's the reality of what happened, but I have to push that back in the past to some point, which means like it. I have to talk to my spiritual father about this. Like, okay, now do I have to replace that with something because that's going to leave a hole? Like, what do I do? Am I replacing that with debate? Is that why I'm getting more into debate? Like, so I have so many questions that I can't even answer, but it's like, I think I need to lean towards Christ and I think I need to
Yeah.
pray more. And I think that I need to dedicate more time to prayer, studies of the saints and things like this. I think that that's the hole that needs to be filled with that kind of thing and walking towards Christ. So I think I just answered my own question. Actually, in the process
Yeah,
of talking.
exactly.
There you go.
Yeah, man. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. I know I did. What I liked about it is it was a bunch of Christian men like talking about what society needs and a lot of things that young men especially, I think need to hear because it's not being talked about enough. You don't see shows where it's just a bunch of men talking about things like this, and I think this messaging, it needs to be put out there more. And that's what I like what we do here in the Woke Autopsy, interviewing these people, getting these messages out there. So I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. And I know next week we're going to have another really interesting, very different.
Man.
Yeah, it's going to be a very different episode than this. It's not going to be, it's not going to be as positive, but it's,
Oh my gosh.
it's going to be, it's going to be a doozy. Yeah.
I don't know how to
be,
describe the next episode. Vic, but it's like, even if you know who's going to be on the next episode, I don't know how to describe this. It's going to be kind of dark, but it's going to be dark in a very fascinating way where it's like, if you see an accident, you're going to drive, but why am I slowly pulling over and then turning to look at this? I should drive, but then it's like, oh, I got to crank my neck to look at the damage. Like, it's going to be one of these podcasts. So you're going to want to tune in. I'm not baiting you for the next podcast. I'm just telling you the reality. Like, we are about to see something that is going to be extremely fascinating. And we have to be really tactful about how we cover this next podcast because this is going to be the real deal. We've covered the not real deal, right? Vic, when it came to this subject.
Yeah.
This is now going to be the real thing That's my little Easter egg hint for you guys. But we're covering the real deal, and I'm still trying to figure out. I have a list of questions, by the way, Vic. I'll send this to you.
All right.
He's accepted being on the podcast, but this is. I don't even know how to even process how to tell you guys this. But anyways, whatever Vic said, just listen to him. It's going to be interesting. That's all I'm
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like Marte said, we've interviewed someone who wasn't the real deal, and now we're going to be interviewing someone who is the thing that the real deal, and it's going to be interesting. That's all I got to tell you. So make sure you guys tune in next week on my channel and on Marte's channel. It's going to be good.
Oh boy, Lord have mercy. This is going to be. I've never done this before. Meaning, I've done interviews, but I kind of want to say what it is, but I'm not. It's going to be interesting. You guys are going to want to tune in. Let me shut up. Let's roll out. Vic, I appreciate you being on another podcast. Tune in. Look for the schedule. I'm going to drop with the date when it happens. Vic's going to know too. And check out the availability, but you're going to want to tune into the next podcast because this is going to be off the rails. I already know.
Yeah.
You're going to not want to miss this. And there's going to be, it's going to be a clip fest. Trust me. It's super clip fest. All right. That's it. I hope you guys have a great evening. And Vic, can you tell everybody where to reach you and what you do?
Yeah, hi. I am a YouTuber. You can find me at KewellV, KEWLV1C, and that's where I review debates, make fun of people, particularly right now, Brian Shapiro, and just liberals in general that are very Brian Shapiro-esque. And so, yeah, my main platform is YouTube, but if you type in my name in other social media, I'm sure I'll come up there too. So there you go. That's where you guys can find me.
Yeah, it's very, I'm going to tell you an inside joke that only you and me know. Somebody doesn't look too good in the light, and somebody's hairline was in a different zip code from what I saw in some chat. So anyways, Vic, I'm going to leave you with that nugget. Christ is God, and we are out of here. Talk to you guys later. All right, Vic, take care.
Yeah, you too, Marte.
Bye.
Later.
All right, guys, that has been the podcast. That was a crazy time. Man, hopefully you guys enjoyed Seraphim, and Brother Seraphim and Dr. Moeller. That was very interesting. I wanted these guys on the podcast because Dr. Moeller is interesting. And not only is he Orthodox, but also Seraphim's got an interesting story. He's also another IFBB pro too, and Orthodox, so based. Vic is based too. Vic's Christian. I want him to lean towards orthodoxy, and he's moving. He's moving that direction. Let's keep this going, guys. We need orthodoxy strong in America. That's what I'm saying. We need orthodoxy strong in America. But this is the thing. I'm here to help men. Ultimately, that's what we're here to do, is help men regardless, because we're battling feminism. Whether or not you're looks maxing or whatever, do it for yourself, man. These women, don't be following these women. If you listen to them, you're just going to become pussified, to be honest with you. So, I mean, if you look at masculine in America, we need to lean towards that. That's what that meaning, like more manly, like work ethic, leaning towards merit-based things like this. I'm speaking to even the secularists when I say this. Don't follow women. That's like the last thing you want to do, especially these B-dubs out here. I see AJ in the chat. He knows what I'm talking about, the B-dubs. Single mom epidemic, all this other stuff. Don't fall prey to that. But anyways, that's been this episode. You guys have a great night, and Christ is God. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace out.